provide content, we workshop content together, and they assist us on an ongoing basis when it comes to civic education. So thank you very much, Skamandla, for always being there when we need you. My name is Luthuli. I'm the Provincial Electoral Officer for the Commission in KwaZulu-Natal, and I'm very happy to see particularly young people with us today. I'm not going to take too much time in terms of explaining why we are here. We have amongst us people that are much more well-equipped to do that task today. I would like to introduce some of our senior managers and commissioners that are here with us today. Every province had an opportunity once a year to hold a thought leadership session, and KZN chose to do this one on young people because we thought it's a relevant thing to run with, given that we are looking at how we can mobilize young people to be interested in what is going on in the country, in our politics, in issues of governance, and looking at how we can, together with young people who are already in organized formations in this province, look at how we can attract more young people, because we can't even talk about how we want them to vote as organizations. We just want to get them to vote that so that when they decide to take who they vote for next year, they know exactly that they are ready to vote as well. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you become excited once there's an election date. And unfortunately, on the day the election date is proclaimed, the voters not closes. So there's a tendency for people to get excited once there's an election date, and that's actually very late, because at midnight on that day when the election date is proclaimed, the voters roll closes. So we thought this is a time, almost a year into the earliest possible election date, and let's try and see how we can work together with youth formations, youth from political parties, youth from civil society organizations, SRCs and tertiary institutions, and youth and faith-based organizations, youth desks in municipalities. Those are the people that I interviewed today. And we thought, let's look at youth in those small sectors and see how we can join, get young people interested, and get them registered and be on the voters roll. Then political parties and independents can take over after that when we start campaigning, trying to get those people. For now, priority, let's get them on their voters roll. I would like to introduce to you some of the senior people within the Electoral Commission that have joined us. I would like to start with Josh Pillay, who is one of the commissioners in the Electoral Commission. You know, one of them is going to be a judge, and Josh Pillay is that one who is a judge within the Commission. Thanks very much, Josh Pillay, for joining us. And we are also luckily joined by provincial electoral officers from other provinces. Some have held this thought leadership themselves, some are still going to hold one. I would like to start with Mr. Thabo Masemuka, who is the provincial electoral officer for Gauteng. Good to have you. And then next is Untitled Chapter, who is the PO of Free State, and also my work husband. And then I'll move to Nkaro Mateta, who is the provincial electoral officer for Limpopo. And we are always corrected. KZN is not Limpopo, it's Limpopo. There is no M in we are always corrected. And in the same table, I would like to introduce somebody who will be taking the stand pretty soon, after me actually, Dr. Rapo, first name Thabo, who is the manager responsible for research and knowledge management in the commission, and thought leadership sessions and all the research that we commission within the organization is the sole responsibility of his department within the commission. Thank you very much for joining us today. Amongst us, I've already indicated we've got youth from political parties, from the youth wings of political parties. We've got young people from faith-based organizations. We've got young people who are leaders in tertiary institutions, who are members of leadership of SRCs. We've got young people that are driving civil society organizations that focus on youth issues that are here with us. And we also have youth desks from municipalities, because those are our partners that we intend working with to make sure that we get those young people in this province in that voters role, but we also together look at how we can leverage technology, because we know they are forever glued on their phones. How can we take advantage of that and get them interested? I almost missed one person on this side. We are also joined by Manager Operations from Mpumalanga Province, who is representing the Provincial Electoral Officer there, Mr. Allen Mtaga. Welcome to the coast, Alan. We know you have Kruger National Park, we have the coast. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not going to waste any time because Dr. Rapo is going to do a good job of framing this session today and putting it within the context of our broader mandates of civic education within the Electoral Commission and knowledge management. Welcome, everyone. Staff of the Electoral Commission, I've not forgotten you. Somebody is going to say something to you at the end when we thank everyone. Thank you very much. You're most welcome.
So, colleagues, given that Mrs. Ntomfutima Singh has lamented that the DDP, and especially me, we are such good partners in the province, I thought I'd try on the uniform for size. You can let me know. To your IEC official here, I promise I don't go around misrepresenting the IEC, but a gift that we got as a measure of the partnership. Thank you very much. Young Fanel. Anzami position la no, thank you very much. And of course, as Mrs. Masing was pointing out, the various stakeholders that are in the room, in terms of political parties, youth desks, as well as other young people who are involved in civic work, there's also the group of young people that we, from the civil society, are interested in trying to leverage off of the stakeholder relationships that you have with your constituency in order to get to the space of understanding what it is that we ought to do to drive more youth participation. We all know the statistics. Not enough young people are participating in the elections themselves. We know that it's far more easier to get a young person to go out and burn a tire than it is to get them to go into a war room and participate in the infrastructure of the municipalities around what it is that their desires are in that space. How do we get them from the streets into the rooms where these knowledge exchanges are happening, but also where they can be able to input some of that energy into more meaningful spaces? I'd like to invite, for a lot of that context setting, Dr. Thabo Rapo'o from the IEC nationally, who's the Manager for Research and Knowledge Management. Can you give him a round of applause, please?
Good morning, colleagues, and let me start with the master of the ceremony or the program director. You look more IEC than I do. I don't think thank you so much. Let me, before I proceed, also thank our PEO, Mema Singa, for welcoming us in this session, you and your team, for putting this event together, and the topic, excellent topic, something very topical. Thank you so much. Also amongst us, Judge Pillay, Commissioner of the IEC, is joining us today. Thank you so much for your time. And obviously our PEOs are also joining us from we have a lot more PEOs, so some of them are not here, but they are part of this force. So Menkaro from Limpopo, Tate Chavalala from Free State, and Tate Masemula from Gauteng Province, where I come from. So thank you again for joining us here today. The thought leadership session, as Mema Masinga said, we are running these thought leadership sessions across this is part of the National Thought Leadership Program. We are running it as part of the IEC's annual program. So we do some of them at national level, but most of them are done at provincial level. A lot of effort and resources go into this. So that's why I appreciate our provincial PEOs, provincial electoral officers, for being here today and for putting this together. And the topic today, digital democracy and youth participation. I think that Masemula, you had a recent seminar, explores the same topic. So it's becoming a topical issue as we move closer and closer to the elections. It's a puzzle. And I'm hoping young people are here today to help us answer that question. Why are young people not participating? This is a question. They are participating in politics in general. But we're talking about electoral participation. Participation in electoral process is different from participating in broader political processes. So thought leadership program, what we do, we invite what we call thought leaders. Thought leaders are people who dedicate much of their brain power, their intellectual resources, their energies. They dedicate that into researching, understanding, exploring, and explaining topics that are of interest to society. So their brain power is dedicated towards contributing to the knowledge or growing societal knowledge which benefits society in general. So what we do, we invite these thought leaders to come and engage with us, explore, explain, and challenge some of the topics of interest to the IEC and our stakeholders, not just to the IEC and its staff, but also topics of interest to our stakeholders. And we, in that way, we provide a platform for them to engage with us, to challenge us, but we also want to challenge them. It's a two-way process. We learn from them, and hopefully they learn from us, because we know something. As the IEC, we manage electoral processes. So we hope that out of that they'll gain something, but they also dedicate their resources towards understanding and explaining some of the complex topics that we have to face. So hopefully we learn out of that. And in that process of exchange of ideas and knowledge, we contribute toward the IEC becoming a constantly learning organization. That's one of the, I think, one of the strategic benefits of this constant interaction and exchange of ideas. We're becoming a learning organization, and through that, the IEC becomes a better electoral management process, electoral management body, because there are processes that we run and we seek to improve all the time. And through these exchanges, we learn to become better as an election management body. And today's seminar, as I said, it explores the relationship between digital democracy and youth political participation. What is digital democracy? This is the digital democracy, and we understand it as the use of technology to support electoral processes. We already use some of these processes. A variety of them includes electronic voting processes, electronic voting technologies, online petitions, social media activism. Some of these activities, we are already involved in them. As you would be aware, we recently had a nationwide process, an engagement, stakeholder engagement process on electronic voting. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of that. This is part of the broader process of the IEC seeking to utilize technology, to leverage technology towards electoral processes. And the topic today is part of that broader process of engagement. How do we utilize technology to improve electoral processes? So we are engaging in these topics as part of it. And the youth, I mean, as I said, the youth have become, I don't know if I use the word black box. We need to understand that question. We understand that youth, and there's a lot of research that points to the fact that young people are comfortable. It's almost their competitive advantage in terms of the use and consumption of electronic technologies and resources. So it's becoming almost something that goes without saying, that because they are comfortable in the use of technologies, because it's almost their competitive advantage, then there's a almost easy logical assumption to make that they will become, if electronic technologies are used towards supporting electoral management processes, they will become part of it. They will become involved. That's a logical assumption that's made. And we have evidence, as I said, that the young people in South Africa, there's a high usage of mobile technologies among young people. They're engaged in some of the popular social media platforms. A lot of them are involved in the online political discussions, hashtag campaigns. A lot of them have exposure to some of these political technologies, if I could put it that way. There's easy access to the content online, and young people have access to that, so they're using it. So the consumption is already there. Evidence proves that. So it's nothing new, and we don't gain anything by trying to dwell too much into that. It's already a fact. A lot of campaigns, I'm sure many of you know how young people are involved in the Fees Must Fall campaign, the Roads Must Fall campaign. A lot of these were led by young people. These are technological platforms, the use of technologies to support a lot of campaigns. So we are aware of that. But also we have evidence, I'm wrapping up, don't worry about it. We have, okay, all right, thanks. Despite that, despite evidence of such wide-scale consumption by young people and the use of some of these digital platforms, we have evidence that shows, I mean, it goes without saying, youth voter turnout remains low. The figures show it. The IEC knows it, because that's information we handle on a regular basis. Many of them participate online, but they avoid formal electoral political participation. I'm going to put it that way. And there's evidence also there's trust in political institutions is declining among young people. We conduct what we call voter participation surveys all the time, and we are busy conducting one now. It seems to show that trust in political institutions, trust in our democracy, and trust in participating in those electoral processes, including voting, is declining amongst young people. Many of them feel that their vote does not change anything. Their vote does not contribute towards anything. So in a sense, if I have to reduce it to a basic element, digital activism does not seem to lead to physical participation or participation in electoral processes. So evidence suggests that young people are digitally active. That's a fact. Many of them are engaged in digital processes, discussions, campaigns, exchange of ideas through digital platforms. They are involved in it, there's no doubt about it. But that doesn't seem to translate into participation in formal electoral processes. So hopefully today, I'm not sure if we should say that we expect an answer or we are going to have an answer or exchange ideas that will lead to that answer. So let me thank a lineup of our speakers. We have young people as part of the platform. Hopefully they'll help IEC, teach the IEC something, one or two, about what we have here. What's the dynamic? Why does digital activism not translate into electoral participation? What's the answer? Do we have an answer, or should we assume that an answer will come one day? Not now. But Mema Singa, I'm hoping that your thought leadership session today will give us the answer. It's a burden that we have to carry for today. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rapo, for your contributions in setting the scene. Perhaps before we invite our keynote speaker who's joining us online, we're using technology, we're leveraging off of these tools. Just because someone isn't able to get here in person, we can still continue to get the insight and value from that person. But what I want to say specifically to us who are in the room and on the online chat sections, please take down notes where possible. Please, if you have questions or inputs, don't think that we won't make time for them. The program is specifically set out to prioritize the participation in the room. The people who will be joining us as speakers are just to provoke some thoughts. They aren't the arbiters of all of the knowledge that we have. We might call them thought leaders, but leadership is also about letting other people into the space and into the room in order to be able to contribute meaningfully to the ideas that we're in. We're in a space of ideating. And of course, as Dr. Rapo spoke about earlier, the idea about e-voting is also an opportunity for things like ideating. What I want to caution in the discussion that we're going to be having today is electoral participation, political participation of young people through digital mechanisms isn't limited to e-voting. We have, and the IEC has that discussion document and those processes already going forward. But ultimately, there are other spaces for participation politically as well as electorally that don't necessarily mean turnout to the polls specifically, or at least engaging with the vote by using your cell phone or an internet database, etc. But it's about how do we get people's inputs into the democratic process outside of a protest movement happening, outside of the sort of activism that we're seeing. How do we move that towards meaningful policy direction so that young people feel that the policy that comes out of Parliament, the policy that the IEC is able to use in its hiring processes isn't just something that is thought of in abstract from young people, but it's something that has been driven by young people in particular. And of course, in order to give us the broad outline of some of the discussion points we're going to be having today, I'd like to invite from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Professor Upsana Singh, and she'll be taking us through the digital democracy and the future of youth participation in South Africa. She's joining us online from Teams, and hopefully we can then be able to have some responses and engagement with that from the floor in the room and as well as from our other panelists. Can we invite, of course, she might not be able to hear us, but she must know that we love her nonetheless and wish her well, a speedy recovery. Can we invite Dr. Singh to be able to join us for this platform? A round of applause, please. Professor, you have the floor. I think you must just check if you're muted on your side. I'm sure the sound guys this side will sort us out. You're muted. Please check on your platform. Please unmute on your platform if you can. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Good morning to the organizers. Good morning to the MC. Thank you for the introduction. Sincere apologies for not being able to attend in person. I come down with a very bad bout of bronchitis. But thank you for accommodating me in the session. I'm going to just be sharing a few of my ideas with you on what I think digital democracy in South Africa is and how we are leveraging technology to promote youth participation. As the MC quite correctly said, we're only here to share our own thoughts and views. It's nothing that we are saying is prescriptive or nothing that we are saying is cast in stone. We're looking forward to listening to the youth themselves and their views and opinions on some of these topics. So my greetings to distinguished guests, colleagues, the youth leaders and partners in democracy. It is an honor for me to speak at this KZN Thought Leadership Engagement where we come together to reflect on one of the most pressing questions of our time, and that is how do we use technology to strengthen our democracy? In particular, how do we ensure that young people represent both the present and the future of this country are truly at the center of that process? We know that South Africa's story of democracy has always been one of adaptation, innovation, and resilience. From the ballot papers of 1994 that represented newfound freedom, to the digital dashboards which we use today that reflect real-time results. Our democratic institutions have always evolved in response to society's needs. Today we have a need for us to be part of the digital transformation process, which is an imperative driven not only by technological advancement, but by the expectations and behaviors of our citizens, especially our youth. Young people born in the 2000s and the 2010s often pose to digital natives. They do not experience democracy in the same way that we and our parents did. We know that the younger generation lives online, they consume news online, they engage with institutions online, and increasingly, their expectations of government, which include responsiveness, transparency, and convenience, are shaped entirely by their own digital experiences. For this reason, digitalization is not simply a technical upgrade. It is a democratic necessity. If democracy does not integrate into the digital spaces where young people already exist, then democracy itself risks losing an entire generation of participants. In the recent years, the South African government has increasingly harnessed digital tools to make participation more accessible, more transparent, more aligned to the daily realities of modern citizens. I'm going to commence with some examples of digital transformation led by the IEC and then move on to some more general examples. If we look at the online voter registration portal, this has fundamentally changed how young people interact with the democratic process. Registering to vote used to require physical presence at a station, access to transport, and awareness of registration weekends. Barriers that disproportionately affected young people who were studying far away from home, frequently moving between residences, or living in areas where transport was costly. Today, a young person can register in a few minutes, or living in areas where transport was costly. Today, a young person can register in a few minutes. This shift is profound because it takes voter registration from being an administrative burden to being a seamless digital experience, something that young people in South Africa can do in the same space where they order food, for example, or communicate with their friends. Alongside digital registration, the IEC has invested heavily in youth-centric communication, realizing that young people are less likely to consume information through newspapers or government websites. The Commission now disseminates voter education through Instagram Reels, TikTok explainers, short YouTube clips, and interactive Q&A sessions on X or Twitter. These digital channels allow the IEC to simplify complex concepts such as proportional representation or special votes. It also helps to combat misinformation, which is increasingly prevalent in online spaces. And most importantly, they reach the youth demographic directly, meeting them in the places where they already spend most of their time. Transparency is also a key pillar of digital democracy. The IEC's Live Results Operations Dashboard is one of the most advanced and admired on the continent. It provides real-time updates from every voting station, allowing any citizen, especially the tech-savvy youth, to verify information independently. In an era where institutional trust is fragile, giving young people access to raw, verifiable data is crucial. It signals that the democratic process is open, honest, and accountable. Moving on beyond the electoral space, if you look at the broader South African government, here we have a zero-rated platform that allows youth to report service delivery issues, apply for certain services, and communicate directly with government. Because the platform does not require mobile data, it bridges that digital divide for low-income participation. It allows citizens to hold local government accountable, to report concerns and track responses, all digitally and all from their phones. This kind of two-way communication transforms government from a distant authority into an accessible partner. Furthermore, digital public participation platforms used for policy feedback, such as online surveys, digital public comment portals, and virtual parliamentary hearings, have opened up democratic processes that were historically inaccessible to young people who lacked the time, transport, or resources to physically attend consultations. These platforms create the possibility of a truly inclusive democracy in which youth voices are not only heard, but integrated into decision-making. Public sector social media engagement has also become a new form of democratic dialogue. Ministers, MECs, and departmental heads now host live streams, open virtual town halls, and respond to public queries online, making it easier for citizens to ask questions, raise concerns, and debate national issues directly with decision makers, something that would have been impossible a decade ago. This digital proximity between youth and leadership reduces the sense of distance that often drives political apathy. While government's transformation is significant, some of the most impactful innovations in digital democracy have come from parastatals, civil society organizations, and the civic tech sector. These actors are often nimble and highly attuned to the needs of communities, especially youth. An example is the South African Broadcasting Corporation, for example, which has evolved from traditional broadcasting into a multi-platform digital media hub. Through YouTube live streams, WhatsApp opinion polls, Twitter spaces, and online news debates, the SABC has created spaces where citizens can engage with national issues in formats that resonate with them, especially with youth. The accessibility of digital broadcasting ensures that youth who cannot afford DSTV or traditional media can still participate in political discussion and remain informed. The MySteps app, developed by the South African Police Service, has given the citizens a direct tool for community safety. Through the app, citizens can report crime, upload evidence, communicate anonymously, and access emergency services. Many young people view this as their first practical act of civic duty, using a digital tool to improve safety and hold authorities accountable. This demonstrates that every act of digital participation, even in service delivery, strengthens the democratic fabric of society. A particularly interesting example of unintended civic engagement is the SFAR push app. Initially created simply to track load-shedding schedules, it has evolved into a community-driven platform where millions of young people share local alerts, report service delivery issues, discuss municipal challenges, and mobilize around community problems. In many ways, it has become social and geographical boundaries. Civic society and civic tech organizations have also been pioneers in creating democratic tools tailored specifically to the youth. Platforms such as Mobi use SMS, WhatsApp, and accessible mobile sites to help young people mobilize around social justice issues. Through petitions, campaigns, and advocacy drives, marginalized youth, particularly young women, use the platform to influence government decisions. Because the platform is mobile first and data-light, it is accessible to young generation who may not have smartphones or stable internet access. Educational institutions have also become incubators of digital democracy. Many universities and TVET colleges now conduct digital student elections, online debates, and WhatsApp-based campaign messaging. These experiences expose young people to the mechanisms of voting and public leadership in a way that builds long-term democratic habits. In addition, campus innovation labs and hackathons encourage youth to build civic tech solutions, ranging from service delivery tracking apps to building public transport safety tools. When young people build solutions to community problems, they develop a sense of ownership over democratic processes. Even the private sector plays a growing role. Banking Act that streamline identity verification and digital KYC processes help young entrepreneurs formalize their business and strengthen economic inclusion, which is deeply tied to democratic participation. Telecommunications companies use their reach to deliver mass, youth-focused civic campaigns, podcasts, and educational content, amplifying civic messaging at a national scale. Collectively, these parastatal civic society and private sector innovations demonstrate that digital democracy is not the responsibility of government alone. It is an ecosystem effort, one in which every digital interaction, whether with a public institution or a civic platform, shapes how young perceive and participate in a democracy. If we move beyond South Africa, there are some remarkable examples of how governments are leveraging digitization to deepen democratic participation. These examples offer lessons and inspiration for South Africans as we continue our own digital transformation journey. In Kenya, for example, the digital revolution in public services has been transformative. Platforms such as the e-Citizen allow citizens to access hundreds of government services online, from business registration and passport application to tax submissions and land reports. Equally important is Kenya's embrace of mobile money ecosystems like mbheles, which has enabled financial inclusion on a scale unmatched globally. When young people are financially included, they become more active in civic and political life. Rwanda offers another powerful example through its Irembo platform, which has digitized over 100 government services, including ID documents, driving license, and social services. This country has also embraced digital ID systems that simplify public sector operations and reduce corruption. In Nigeria, youth movements such as Not Too Young to Run and digital activism around the End SARS protests demonstrated the power of social media for democratic mobilization. Nigerian youth use Twitter, Instagram, and online mapping tools to coordinate peaceful demonstrations, track incidents, and document human rights violations in real time. This show of digital civic action reshaped perceptions of youth power across the continent. Ghana has also made commendable progress in the digital democratic infrastructure. Its biometric voter registration system and digital address system help streamline service delivery and reduce electoral disputes. From Tunisia to Mauritius, digital platforms have been used to crowdsource public input on legislation, host online civic education programs, and pilot e-voting technologies. These African examples reveal a clear truth that digitization is not a luxury. It is a catalyst for democratic renewal. They show us that when technology is used intentionally, young Africans become not only participants but leaders in shaping democratic futures. So in conclusion, as we reflect on the digital tools and information shaping South Africa's democracy, one thing becomes undeniable. Our youth are not merely beneficiaries of the digital democracy. They are its drivers. Digitization offers young South Africans a renewed entry point into the democratic life of South Africa. It lowers barriers, it accelerates responsiveness, and brings government closer to the everyday realities of young people. But more importantly, it transforms something that happens once every 5 years into an ongoing interactive relationship between citizens and the state. If we continue investing in digital innovation, expanding access, and building youth-centric platforms, South Africa can deepen participation, strengthen trust, and shape a democracy that is not only modern, but truly inclusive. The future of our democracy is digital, and the digital future belongs to our youth. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. I look forward to interacting during the rest of the session.
Thank you very much, Prof. A round of applause for Prof. Singh. Some very important portions shared. Ngaze ngazwakala sengathi ngise-TV, guys. Ngilo muntu lothi mabe ngithumela i-voice note ngingafuni ukuyizwa ngoba ngithanda ukuzwa izwi lami sometimes, but ngizwe sengathi abantu bajabulela. Ngicela ningishayele izandla. No, I'm joking. So very important insights there, Prof. I think part of what you shared, if I may get some hands, some participation in the room going. How many of us are part of a WhatsApp group? A WhatsApp group. How many of us are part of WhatsApp groups more than 10? More than 10 WhatsApp groups. How many of us have used a WhatsApp poll to come to some decision making? Uthi mhlambe ngiyazi onjabule babuzana ukuthi isiphuzana namhlanje kulist izinto lapho izinto kanjalo. How many of us are part of Facebook groups where we post regularly and engage? And of course, the space that we're in at the moment, the multiple commissions, the ad hoc committee, there's been a lot of online communication. Perhaps the online podcast space has picked up quite significantly. How many of us read and follow or engage with podcasts that we see on YouTube, on based on whether you're using an Apple or a Google device, Spotify, how many of us will engage on podcasts? And of course, the question then becomes, when you are part of those WhatsApp groups, when you are part of those Facebook groups, when you are on YouTube, are you merely consuming or are you also a creator? How many of us in the room are content creators? Content creators, you create your own content for other people to consume. And of course, then the question then becomes, what are the mechanisms, as you're creating that content, that you find to leverage other people's voices to be part of that space? They're going to be doing Vox Pops at some point today. And of course, our media partners have gotten very comfortable with using Vox Pops. But I think something that's been interesting to see is WhatsApp lines. I was listening to SAFM this morning. SAFM talk radio. I don't listen to music stations. I'm young at heart. Sing a phase out of that space. So when we think about how the public broadcaster, for instance, has started to integrate things like X commentary on its broadcast mechanisms, things like WhatsApp chat lines as part of its ongoing ability to understand what is being communicated in the public. But one thing that's interesting about the digital divide at the moment, people are concerned about AI, for instance. And as the South more generally, but South Africa and the African continent in particular, we must be concerned with the safety, security, transparency of these platforms that we're utilizing in terms of data security, in terms of the ways in which it can be used to either change regimes in some instances, in ways that we might not be comfortable with, but also in terms of the ways in which that information might be mis- or disinformation and how we engage with that. But of course, Prof has started us very well. I'd like to invite our panelists onto the stage. So colleagues, I'd like to invite first, as they come up, Ms. Luthuli from the Center for Community Development of South Africa, Mr. Bayanda Gumbi, who's from Luma Learn, and Mr. Josiah Spila from the GCIS, Government Communications and Information System. Ama acronyms ngijwayele ukuwachaza ngoba abanye bethu siyasala uma besenzothi nje yabona DDP, IEC, there's so many acronyms. Yeah, you can take a seat that side. So we're going to have, as I mentioned earlier, our panelists who are going to help us to prompt some of the things that we're coming up with. But of course, given that Prof is online, ngicela ukuthi selekelele ngama roving mics just quickly. I just want to hear from 2 or 3 young people in the room about what are some of the key things or aspects that when you think about digital democracy, when you think about leveraging tools that are technology-based, what comes to mind? Perhaps it can be a reflection from what Prof has already spoken about, but also just generally what it is that interested you specifically about also coming into a space like this. Mabe sikhuluma ngamathuluzi lawa, sikhuluma ngani bantu abasha, ngicela sixoxe nje. Ningaphamisa isandla bazofika abantu nemic kunini. Nasi isandla sangaphambili sokuqala, esesibili, 2 at the back from DUT, omunye mhlawumbe wase KZN. No, I'm joking, but co-competition. Any other young person? I need a third hand here. Thank you very much from Peter Maritzburg. Ngicela siqale ngawe mnumzana. No. Uzolinde mic ngiyaxolisa. Because of the online space, you can stand as well, please, so other people in the room can also see you. Let's legelelane nge-sound. Until we get to that point. Yazi, a friend of mine who works in music management in particular came to me last year with a project idea. So in the space of trying to get people more interested in participating in elections, for instance, one of the things that he mentioned, music. I spoke about music. So my friend of mine who's in music management, he came to me last year and he said, Yakumbula, when we were younger, or some of you might have been younger at the time, or some of you might not remember, based on whether you're 2K or 1K, the idea of Ugbulelu Fantam being one of the first instances where we saw, where we saw that ability of the voting majority, particularly Abagwazulu, Nabatando Maskandi, in order to try and get people to participate in that space. So he said, how can we use a similar thinking around how musicians are able to catalyze their own constituencies and audiences and get the same type of energy into voter participation? And perhaps, given the politics that currently exists in music, it might be fitting to use that as a test space to try and engage on whether we can leverage the use of that type of technology and media in order to try and get people to participate a lot more efficiently. Inkinga umuntu mebe sekwaqala ngomcabango kumele uqedele eqala before ungenelele bafu ngiyaxolisa. Ngicela simshayele izandla. Please introduce yourself. If you come from an institution or organization, please let us know where you're from, and then of course tell us what you think about the idea of digital democracy and perhaps why it was interesting for you to be in the room. Thank you very much.
Okay. Firstly, my name is Azande Zondi. I'm from Peter Maritzburg. So, as you said, the youth utilizes digital communication and resources to communicate all the time. So, me as a youth, I have a question for you. How do you expect us, or how do you expect me to influence the youth as we use social media and certain sources to get the youth to be activated, and what are steps that I should take and other people should take to convince other people to get into voting? Like me, I'm interested in these types of situations, but other people aren't. So obviously the IEC should utilize people like me that are interested to influence other youth to get voting.
So thank you very much. Can we pass the mic on to the next speaker? The young man is volunteering himself. He's saying, I'm a young person, I'm interested in political and electoral participation. How can you use my voice in order to influence my constituency? Either we give him some capacity in terms of the skills and the ability to speak about these subject matters from an authoritative space. And then of course, in terms of like translating some of the lingo and language. We have lingo nati, but ibizwanga jargon, the electoral jargon, to make it more easy and palatable for young people to engage with. Perhaps our speakers will also be able to engage a bit more on that.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Inkosi. I'm the SRC president at DUT, Obviously, I'm deployed by the EFF Youth Command to be in that position. But most importantly, I'm a little bit concerned, Chair, Director of the program. I see young people sitting on the stage, but I don't see any SRC member from any institution when you were introducing them. Because in my understanding, the concept of digital technology in universities, it has dipped down. It has been working well. So there are a number of engagements I wanted to engage about, but most importantly, I wanted to respond to the question of how youth is participating, because now youth is no longer participating much in electoral processes and in the democracy, because I believe we need, even ICC itself needs to respond to the integrity of the election processes. So I believe that in the concept of digital technology, the universities have been doing better. Youth are involved in a number of social media platforms, and those social media platforms, they indeed make youth aware of the activism. So most importantly, again, us, the concept of the youth, because now some of us are more lazy to form the lines and all those kind of things. Yeah. So this thing of digital technology makes things easier for us. And in terms of the voter registration, let me tell you something. In the past year, when we were going to elections, a number of young people were interested in registering to vote because they didn't have to form lines. Even myself as a person, I can just help my friend in registering with IEC. So I believe what we need to do now is to make sure that in the registration process, we respond to the digital divide, because we have societies whereby they don't have even access to internet, they don't have access to data and all of those things. So in those instances, ICC must also visit those kind of societies, be part of their internet cafes, offer young people free platforms to get there, use those systems and be able to register. Then that's where we can see the response of the youth, because in universities, the thing has been going well and the integrity itself, it has been maintained through the system. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sabonga kakhulu, Simshayeli Zandlu, sihlalo SRC at the Durban University of Technology. I think let's use this as an opportunity. If you spot gaps, fill the gaps. Kuneyinkinga ezikhona in South Africa more generally, and we want to be able to say, how do we drive people, to young people in particular, towards repairing those gaps that we might be spotting in the space. And of course, the example of the SRC and electoral participation at SRC level is something that's going to be an interesting point of discussion for today as well. So we just because no one's specifically on the platform, I know our comrades here have also participated in student politics at various stages, so we'll be able to engage them as well. Nomzane?
No, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorted. No, thank you very much. My name is Bonelo Ngubane, and I am from Pietermaritzburg, representing an organization called the Youth Forum Movement. It's just that I'm a bit concerned with the submissions that have been made, or the submissions that have been deposited here, because everyone speaks as if the digital technology in democratic and electoral processes do not have shortcomings. That's the problem I have. Because if you are to look at global trends and how things have been happening globally, for instance, if we're going to cite an example, we're going to cite an example of the US. I think there was a widespread complaint with Donald Trump complaining, the Republicans complaining that the elections were rigged and that there was an external force in their elections and whatnot. So if we're going to speak about digital technology in democratic and electoral processes, we must also ask these following questions, which are very pertinent and relevant in this time, in this particular time and period we're speaking about. The cyber threats, that's the first thing that the IEC must be able to give us clear answers on. What clear technological mechanisms are in place to ensure that whenever we switch from analog or from the manual form of voting to the digital one, how safe, fair, and how secure our elections or our processes are when we're switching to the digital technology, because we understand very well that even in terms of our education curriculum, not so many young people enroll in ICT studies. We still lack a lot of young people who possess those skills which are economically demanded, by the way. So, and another thing is, we understand that in our country there is still what we call a digital divide. So there are still people who do not understand how to use or how to utilize technology. So if we are really intentional and serious as a country about switching to the digital way of doing things, what measures do we have in place to make sure that whenever this system is now in place, it does not prejudice or it does not discriminate against those who do not have that technological means to be able to participate fully? So those are the two questions I wanted to ask. Thank you very much.
Sibonga kakhulu Mnumzane. And I really do appreciate this portion of the program because it lets us gauge ukuthi sihamba kahle in program yethu in terms of what we are planned, but also in terms of what we might have blind spots in relation to. And based on Mrs. Dlamini's work in crafting today's program, I can tell you that we're still sahamba ngolayin, because ultimately the next speaker, Thabile Luthuli, is going to be speaking about the digital divide. And of course, she's going to be addressing a number of concepts related to youth and the democratic gap and what it is that we're going to be talking about in this instance. And of course, Thabile is both an activist as well as someone who's worked quite significantly in the space of voter participation and of course the election observation missions that we've run for the past 2 or 3 election cycles. A round of applause for Ms. Thabile Luthuli as she comes to the podium. Just speak into the mic, that's all that matters.
Good morning. Oh no, you can do better than that. Good morning. Let me try it one last time. Good morning. There we go, yes. So as Pamandla has rightfully said, my name is Thabile Luthuli, and I'll be speaking about the youth, the gap, and basically where we are, where do we find ourselves in terms of young people and how they participate in electoral processes. Unfortunately, I don't have any slides for you, but I've been told that I have a very beautiful voice, so we should be able to listen and follow on quite well, all right? So I want to get a bit of interaction in the room, and from this, I think you can tell who has mentored me in this space. But if I can get some moving mics, a lot has been happening in the country, and a lot of it has stemmed from what has come from KZN. So I want to know, young people in the room, how do you feel about where we are right now? So it could be about the Madlanga Commission, the various emotion of no confidence that we've had spewing around, and even some threatening to pull out of the coalition government. Please tell me, how do you feel? How do you feel? And there is a point to my questions. Can I please have some moving mics? Can I have some hands? Young people, how do we feel right now about where we find ourselves leading up to the 2026 or 2027 local government elections? Any hands? You don't feel anything? Okay, so we have one hand here. I'd like to take 2 hands for now. So we have one on my right. Cool, noted. Yes? Please state your name, where you come from, and maybe in 2 sentences, how do you currently feel?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sinako Khala. I am the secretary of the Youth League of African Transformation Movement of eThekwini. Currently, when we talk of current affairs, it's quite scary, especially for us as the youth, because looking at Madlanga Commission, looking at the ad hoc committee, everything that's going on is quite scary. It puts us in a position where we don't know which direction we're taking as a country. How do we trust people who are meant to deliver services to us? So it's quite a scary scene, if I may put it like that.
Thank you so much. And then I have one last hand this side, my brother.
Good morning. My name is Luthuli. I come from Action SA Youth. So for me, what I make of the developments of the Madlanga Commission, of the ad hoc committee, is just the lack of accountability amongst our leaders, and also the comfortability of, our leaders being comfortable with the rot that is happening. So I think that's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So, tricky, and then the comfortability of, our leaders with the state of rottenness in our communities and within South Africa at large. I want to start off here. I want to start us off here. When we look at the phenomenon of low youth voter participation, it's not something that is endemic to South Africa. It's not something that is special to us either. When you look at the uprisings in Kenya, Indonesia, Nepal, as well as the Philippines, these are all telltale signs of a dispensation that is not speaking to young people, right? Even when you look at Madagascar, the recent uprising that's there, it's all speaking to the fact that something is not right. Then when we look at Africa specifically, we're a relatively young continent. And what do I mean by young is that a third of our population constitute of young people. But most recently, a 96-year-old was voted back into being president. And again, it speaks to the idea of that there's lack of young representation or youth representation within key decision-making positions, right? And then this has then led to what we find, the authoritarian regimes in China as well as Russia, and as well as, military coups in the DRC gaining popularity because what they've shown us is the idea that they can bring about instantaneous or more tangible change, which is what young people are looking for, change that is instantaneous that happens now. But I'll go back to that in just a little bit. I want to give us a bit of a history to what mobilization or what mobilization looked like in South Africa pre-1994. So my presentation is going to look at like that. Pre-1994, what did it look like? Looking at post-1994, what does participation look like, or what does mobilization, getting people to the polls look like? And because I am progressive, I'm going to give you some of my ideas on how we can truly get young people not only to the registration, but also to the polls as well. So let's start us off here. When we look at the liberation movement or leaders of the liberation movement, I always like to think that these were not politicians at heart, right? I always like to think that these were activists. So these were people who were concerned with the current status quo of what was happening in the country and then wanted to bring about a difference, right? And so this led then to those people having the understanding that for us to make a difference, it requires all of us to come together to bring about that change. Hence, there was this understanding that every man on the street, woman, whatever your capacity was, whether you were a teacher, a garden boy, or a kitchen girl, yes, I am quoting a song right now, is that you had a part to play in the movement. And one of the strategic things that the liberation movement actually did was that it had people in communities that were able to be liaisons. So you didn't necessarily have to form part of the struggle or be part of a political party, but it was the idea that if you're able to mobilize your community, you could be an asset and you could actually bridge or collaborate your community to leaders of the liberation movement. Taverns, which were used by the apartheid government to sort of destabilize and disorganize the liberation struggles, were actually then used as an opportunity for liberators to strategize, but also to teach key political terms. What was rich in pre-1994 is that there was robust discussions on politics. If a person as young as 10 or 11 years old understood key terms like capitalism and socialism, but there was also an understanding of what these terms meant in relation to you as a person. So they emphasized the understanding of, if we move into a democracy, what is democracy going to bring you? And that is what pre-1994 gave us. We saw even with young people, when they were rising up against the use of Afrikaans. Again, it was this understanding that in whatever capacity that we were in, we could all form part of the change, right? We also saw that with the Women's March. We saw that with various activists coming together to bring about the end of apartheid. Again, I want to highlight, and I want us to be thinking about this. It was about active citizenship, that you didn't necessarily have to hold a particular position, but who you were and where you were, you could bring about a difference. And then, comrades, I was not there, so you'll have to explain to me. Something happened in 1994, Nick. You'll have to explain, because I wasn't there. We then moved from having this robust political education and sort of having liberation movements or political parties being part of communities to then having a drawback whereby they remove themselves from communities at the core. So now we had this thing of democracy being the savior, right? So it was moved from citizen participation, but now to just an X. And comrades, that's where I think we got it wrong. We moved away from the understanding that at the core of democracy has to be citizen participation, but then we went and then reduced it to an X, which I believe is the core of why we're sitting here and the problems that we're experiencing as modern day South Africa, okay? And then now when we look at the state of young people, which is the reason why I'm even standing here in the first place, is to try and explain why are we then seeing the issue of low youth participation when we had a history of having, this robust political education and then having that drawback. Why are we not seeing young people coming to the polls and actually participating? And the first thing is that, yes, it is the fact that there is low political education, which is something that we've been experiencing a lot. But I think it also comes to the idea that there has become a huge distrust within the political system itself. And young people are unable to see themselves in the politics of today. But I want to make a bit of a contrast, because when Afrobarometer did a study ahead of the 2024 elections, out of the group of people that they actually that they asked or surveyed, they asked, what is your feeling about democracy? What is your feeling about voting? And 70% of the young people that were part of that survey actually stated that they are for democracy, that they do support voting, and they do see voting as essential to everyday life. But why do we not see that coming up at the polls, which is the question that I want to try and answer. We're not seeing that because it is not speaking to what young people want. It's simple. Prof mentioned that, young people are what are very special, the 2Ks. 2Ks are very special because they are the first generation to actually experience internet or digitization. So they're the first ones to experience technology at its fullest. And what that has done for us is that it has then sort of put into the psyche of young people in being able to experience things instantaneously. So everything is fast, right? Because you have your phone, you have the internet, everything is fast. So it's then, put into their psyche that everything must come as quickly. That's one of the first things, is that we have, I'm not a 2K, but I'll put myself in there. So it's put into our psyches that things must come instantaneously and quite fast. So we're seeing that democracy in the way that it is, there are so many channels to adhere to. If you want a policy change, for example, you need a 2/3 majority. Or if you want to, put about a new law, there are various different channels that you have to go to. So it directly speaks against that instantaneous that we're so used to. But then we also go to the lack of political will. There is a lack of political will into dealing with the issues of young people. When you hear stories or anything that is remotely related to young people, it's only during Youth Month. That's when we usually hear the core of what young people are going to, or if you hear, maybe programs that are specifically directed to young people, we're merely reduced to the 30 days of June. And thereafter, you don't really see that robustness or that that robustness or even that eagerness to deal with the issues that are faced by young people. What are those issues? when you specifically look at KZN, the high HIV and AIDS epidemic, teenage pregnancy, as well as unemployment. But we're not seeing from our political parties the eagerness or the willingness to actually deal with those issues. And because South Africa is majority party politics, and that's where most of us actually engage in terms of our politics, it comes from political parties. You end up withdrawing because you can see that those that are elected in power do not actually don't actually have the willingness to deal with the issues that you have set forth. But also then again, when you look at political parties and you look at the way that they're structured, we still don't see enough representation of young people within core structures of political parties. Yes, you might see them there at universities, you might see them there low at branch level, but where it matters the most, we actually don't see a true representation. When I say true representation, as young people being the majority of South Africa, we don't see them representing and forming part of those political structures, which becomes very problematic when the core or the majority of our political system is still around party politics. And then you have those young people that actually want to participate in politics, whether as an independent candidate, but then again, because of unemployment and having to, mobilize those resources, it becomes very difficult as a young person who does not have a job to stand as an independent candidate. Let's look at the signatures that are required for you to stand as an independent candidate, the financial resources that you actually need as a young person to show up on the ballot paper itself. Hence, then you find those young people that are capable and have the capacity to lead, not forming part of being part of the elections as a candidate because it's just too expensive. And then other issues that we have civil society as well, who is able to mobilize young people. But even itself, civil society in itself. And what I mean by integritege, you find that civil society himself is now somewhat involved with political parties. So there's no true sort of differentiation between civil society itself and as well as political parties. And then again, young people become distrustful of the civil society that is supposed to be the one that is supposed to be the watchdogs or the ones that is supposed to be keeping civil society transparent in itself. So you have all those systematic issues that burden young people, which then leave them disillusioned. What do I mean by disillusioned? I mean that they lack trust in the system themselves, and then also then they become apathetic, meaning that they tend to just not have interest in participating in those systems. Umhlongo is now looking at me because of time. But I want to be progressive here. I want to be progressive and give you some of my solutions that I think would be very useful. And I've directed my solutions to, I think, the various stakeholders that are in the room. One, which is civil society, which mostly tends to bear majority of the burden when it comes to voter education or civic education at large. Civil society, it's important for us to not only focus our efforts on just the X, but also what happens in between election seasons. It's important that you teach young people how do you remove a councillor, for example? How do you get a response from a decision maker? It's high time that we actually break down the political systems in South Africa. How do they work in relation to one another, as opposed to just saying go vote because your vote matters? It's important to show me in between election seasons, how can I get my voice heard? Then we also have political parties. Political parties also account for majority of the young people in terms of organizing young people. I heard political parties complaining about Section 24A last year and how, they didn't know, and so young people couldn't go and vote because they didn't know. It's important to have those collaborative efforts between the IEC as well as political parties in terms of keeping them up to date in terms of some of the changes that have happened electorally, but also in terms of driving voter registration campaigns. I mean, some political parties are able to get young people to stadiums, large number of young people into stadiums. So get those young people registered and be part of the voters' roll, because ultimately they're the the ones that are going to be voting for you. And because I am out of time, I hope we get to engage and maybe I can give us some of the points that I might have missed.
Thank you very much, Tabile. As I mentioned earlier, the participation of those of us who are in the room is equally as important as some of the provocations that we get from the speakers, so I will be quite tough on time as a reminder to our panelists. The discussion that's been presented by Tabile gave us the perspective of a thriving space for political education existed pre-94. The idea that young people had a sense of what it is that they want to get it themselves out of, but they were ideologically underpinned in terms of the struggle mentality itself. Post-1994, it seems as though political parties transitioned into a different animal. And perhaps the idea of getting power is something that we need to contest and ask ourselves whether were political parties innately corrupt, or was it power that corrupted them? And when I speak about corruption, I'm not speaking about the looting and the monies, but I'm talking about the inability to sustain ideological perspectives, the things that were driving you in the past, that you went to people and campaigned on, don't seem to be the same way in which you're driving state institutions and governing. And so we need to be able to talk about that mismatch and ultimately how it leads to institutional distrust, as Tabile has spoken about now, that young people don't trust that the vote will be able to leverage their ambition for what it is, what type of country that they ought to be in. But ultimately, she followed up and then said, both in terms of civil society and political parties, we need to rethink the current strategies that we have about mobilization. And perhaps we need to question, are we mobilizing for mobilization's sake, or to what end do we want to mobilize young people in particular? Because a contestation that, and Tabile didn't say this, but I am saying this for myself, a contestation that I have about political parties specifically, especially those who have youth formations, whether it be a youth league, and I think for the EFF in particular, Kunama Student Command in particular, I don't know if there's a youth command, there's a youth brigade in the IFP, etc., and other spaces. How important are your youth formations for the broader policy discussions that are happening at the sort of quote-unquote parents' table? And when I say the parents' table, I mean your NECs. I mean the structures that actually drive the decision-making inside the political parties. We seem to have a kiddies' table, and what the mainstream politics of the party is diverging from each other. They don't speak to one another quite often. And of course, we can discourse about that going forward. I'd like to invite for the next input Mr. Bayanda Gumbi, who's going to be speaking to us, perhaps giving us some ideas about innovative digital tools and platforms that we have currently for civic education and engagement, and ultimately, what are his propositions for the IEC and other stakeholders in the room for the types of tools that should be used for these types of engagements.
Greetings to everyone. Probably, I would like to start here. You know, when we're talking or engaging on the topics of tools, we mustn't start it there. We must start it off with our phones. So can everyone raise their phones? Just up. So, doesn't matter if it's smart or not, but what it matters that trillions and millions of rands, people's lives, everything is found in that tool. So whenever we're engaging on the digital tool, we're engaging it on the platform of what we have and what we're engaging on a continuous basis of our lives. And we will find ourselves engaging on this even in our homes, our private spaces. So whenever we're engaging on what I'm about to engage on, it's something that is close to us. But attention runs the game. Thank you. Can I have that? Thank you. So, who am I? In simple terms, because I don't want to waste time, I call myself a community catalyst. I'm the head of Luma Learn when it comes to community engagement, and also a facilitator in CCD. So we share similar efforts in the entrenchment of our involvement in our communities. So the importance of digital civic engagement. Why does this matter? And I've heard many people come up front here, starting with the doctor, say that we are already online, and digital tools remove barriers and increase participation. Information becomes accessible, instant, and inclusive. But to my understanding, these are the key drivers that run these engagements. We have WhatsApp learning, because everyone has WhatsApp. That's the basic contact of everyone's daily lives. We have AI-powered civic tools. I'm sure everyone is clued up with ChatGPT. Does everyone know ChatGPT? Everyone is using it. Okay, thank you. And we have mobile-first government services. Kukono SA Youth, everyone engaging with that. I know young people are here. Are we finding jobs in that platform? Now that is a problem. Now that is a huge problem. And we have social media engagement. I know everyone has a social media handle. Abanye baibiza ngo bani, oh 1, 2, 3. All I want is love. You know, there's a lot of things. You see bizangazo, private accounts, damaging accounts. Some of which I know that political parties are venturing into something, ebizwange API nama chat box, just to protect their image when it comes to abantu that are attacking their image online, because we have to understand that when it comes to digital tools, you must understand that it grabs people's attention. And whenever it grabs people's attention, people are quite frank when it comes to protecting their image. So everyone wants to protect their image. So why must we use digital tools for civic engagement? Number one, young people are there. I've already mentioned that. Am I in the same slide? Because I'm kind of doing things separately. Yes. Yes. Oh, okay, thank you. Tools. Oh, yes. So why must we use digital tools for civic engagement? So we have proven that we're already there as young people. Everyone has a tool, everyone has a gadget. I was playing Call of Duty yesterday, and one of the topics, ma'am, we were talking about this discussion, and people using games were engaging on civil engagement. I had a full discussion on Call of Duty regarding this. Probably it's something that we'll engage on as we further on our topic. Digital tools make information faster, clear, and accessible. Social platforms help capture youth attention, the new currency. Now, Doctor, everyone is fighting for our attention. We have businesses, we have other social media brands. Everyone is fighting for our attention, and it becomes so, it's a lot to deal at it at once. But now, how do we engage IEC in terms of capturing our attention? Because Heineken wants our attention, right? No, they have adverts. They have adverts. They have marketing. They want to grab our attention. DUT wants to grab our attention because they advertise. So you're dealing with a generation where everyone and everything wants our attention. Now the question is, how do we make voting cool again, attentive towards the youth focus? Because everyone wants it. If you see, I'm not going to say names, but an influencer saying that they're going for a march, you'll find us there. Why? Because a particular individual spoke, and they had the numbers to follow their attention. So digital engagement increases the turnout of people, the awareness and participation of people. So I think that clues up where we stand when we talk about attention, because everyone wants our attention, and whoever owns our attention, owns our focus. So we already covered that over 60% of us are online already. Online already, yes. So I'm kind of used to facilitating, so bear with me if I move around. So standing in one place becomes an issue. So platforms used in South Africa, including IEC. IEC will have to correct me. We have the IEC website, the online voter registration, My IEC portal, IEC mobile app, results, dashboard, voting station finder, party and candidate information tools. And these are other tools being used by the government. We have GovChat, SA Youth, Corruption Watch, online reporting, and Luma Learn, which is an online WhatsApp platform for education purposes, which I'll be talking about. So Luma Learn, it's a case study, just to prove and emphasize that young people are online, and there are bridges that we can ensure and prove that young people are indeed online by just attention. I'm the head of Luma Learn when it comes to community engagement, and we have over 100 plus users across South Africa, and we did this in 6 months through campaigns on social media, school visits, and communities and competitions. So for a young person to engage on a platform and for 100,000 users to be captured in that platform, that means something else. We had to do something. There had to be something that we had to follow. And it was just a simple, can I get that board? So it was just this and school visits, a barcode, school visits, and social media. And in 3 months, we had over 100,000 users. So young people are there. Young people want something that is going to be engaging, valuable, and a marketing that is going to be engageable towards them, fashionable towards them in terms of how they are themselves, because everyone wants our attention. Now, this is just a case study in India of a tool that they use, probably something that we can leverage from as an IEC. It's called MyGov, a national civic engagement platform that uses participating polls, discussion surveys, uses WhatsApp bots, SMS, and AI, talking about the interaction of all the platforms in one website. I know that IEC has, but probably if we can have just one of them. Allows government and citizens to co-create solutions also. So this is just a case study to broaden our understanding that we can leverage some of the tools that they are using, and we can try and implement some of the tools here in South Africa. So collaboration for effective digital civic engagement. So we know that 3 parties play this band, right? The song that we're singing of ensuring that we have a society that's going to be driven by digital civic engagement is going to be played by 3 people. IEC is going to be on the bands, the political parties are going to be singing, and the civic organization are going to be playing the instruments. This is just an illustration. It's not something that is there. But what we must understand that it needs all of us. And whenever young people are not voting, it's not something that we blame IEC, but we have to blame ourselves as the people that are here. Political parties, civic organizations, and also IEC. Because when IEC, political parties, and civic organizations work together, digital platforms become powerful tools and inclusive and informed civic participation. So it's a 3-way game. It's not a one-man game, but everyone here should be infused with ensuring that their systems are moving into this new era. So we'll be sharing an interactive discussion or demonstration where we probably want from you guys, because you've heard so much with us, now we want to engage with you in terms of IEC's platforms, so that we can find out ways in terms of how can IEC probably strengthen, evaluate IEC's current digital tools, identify gaps, and suggest enhancements. Can we do that? Okay, let's do that. Can we go to the portal, please? IEC portal, please. Yeah, Ven. Okay. So before we engage on this, right, I want us to have a feel as young people. How does it look? How does it look, guys? Can you have some hands? How many people have engaged with it so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 people have engaged with it. Can we go to Facebook? We have 7 people engaging with the portal. So can we get why haven't we engaged with it? Can we get any show of hands? Probably it's because of awareness or knowledge. Awareness. Oh, yes. Oh, no, you might.
The question once more is, why do we engage? Why did we?
Why didn't we?
Didn't we?
Yes.
I said I did.
You did?
Yeah,
Oh.
we did it.
Can we give this young gentleman here?
Is the question, why didn't we engage, or why did we engage?
Why haven't we engaged with the portal?
Why haven't I?
Yes.
I did engage with the website.
You did?
Yes.
So everyone is just, who hasn't, guys? Who hasn't engaged? There's a side. And why haven't you? Is it because of awareness? How can we improve it? Yes.
Sanbonani, I am Ebisa Zegalala from Stand Out. The reason why I would say that I haven't engaged is because I don't really know, no one is really informed about things being online per se. Secondly, is that with things going digital, there's also a bit of conflict or uncertainty that, is it right? Because even with the apps that we are using now, maybe for example our FNB app or our ABSA app, how many people have been hacked, you know? And with IEC, we're using our IDs, we're using very important information that we'll be giving in online. Is it safe? Is the app safe? Are information safe? Because there's hackers now. Is it safe? We haven't been given that guarantee that the app that we're about to use, is it interesting to us? Are we getting the information that we need? And is it safe to put in our own personal information to IEC and actually put in our votes? Is it confident enough to, you know, that's the uncertainty that is lying around with people engaging with the app.
The portal.
Yes, the portal.
Do you want to add the app as well?
Yeah, I think both, those are the uncertainties.
Okay.
It's the same because also, I think I'll just make an example with the cookies, for example.
Yes.
People still do not understand what cookies are and how to engage with them. That's the smallest thing of how people are using the internet, but they don't understand what is happening exactly. So I think maybe that is one of the reasons that, okay, fine, you're going to the portal, but do you understand? Do you understand what you agreeing to, you know? What is there, what they are saying? Do you understand, besides it being written? Because people are ready to just say okay, or just say cancel because they want something fast, but they're not really aware of what they're putting themselves into.
Okay. can you come back, sir, because we're going to another question, and we will add you.
No, thank you very much. I just wanted to add a quick information in terms of the integrating, or rather the use of the website. I think that since we are in this current stage of the world, it can be a better suggestion for a IEC to integrate AI chat box or response that are used 24 hours in case there are some people who do not understand how to navigate the system. Something that can be reliable and fast in response, instead of me being stuck in a process and have to ask a person. So it can just be integrated as a chat box or an AI response, a generative AI response in a process of that. At least when I have questions, I can just ask it here. It responds and it takes me back where I left or where I had issues. I can complete in just seamless process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we go to Facebook, and that will be it. Facebook and also WhatsApp, because I know most people that are here are there. This is Facebook. Has anyone engaged with Facebook? I know there's probably a post out now. And we are live on Facebook also. So has anyone engaged with the platform? And who hasn't? And why? And probably if there's any input that you want us to have. And just one person, please. Yes. Can we have Uma?
Thank you. I haven't engaged with IEC on any social media platform. And I feel like it's because of visibility issues from IEC. If I can make an example, there's organizations like Women for Change. You will always, on your Facebook, it's always traffic of izinto ezinjalo nez operations ezenzekayo. You will always find them, you will always get them. So I feel like IEC is not doing enough to be visible to us, even on social media.
Thank you. Can we go to WhatsApp now? Please. WhatsApp. Is that right, Scott? WhatsApp. Just send it a hi. Has anyone engaged with WhatsApp? Who hasn't? And why? Just one question. Yes. Please send just a hi. Just a hi. Or sawubona in Zulu.
Hi, Nikolumano Anele Sabela. I haven't engaged on Facebook and WhatsApp because I'm not aware of the platforms.
Okay, it's awareness. It's awareness. Could we have something quick for WhatsApp? Because I think this will be the final one, application, before my conclusion. Oh, hi, I'll send it. Kalunga. Okay, no, it's fine. But ngizobuza ukuthi uyasende kusawubona. Responda ngesiZulu ngesixhosa because siyazi ukuthi sinama language barriers now. But maybe it's something that IEC can look into, because I know that we have We have 11 official languages, and it's coming into the API of WhatsApp. So probably it's some engagement that we can engage on, because I know kuba mnandi if a platform ikhuluma nawe in a sense of language efanayo. So can we go back to the slides so that I can conclude? So as we are engaging on the innovative digital tools and platforms driving civil engagement, what the IEC has and what it lacks, right? So this was my personal findings as I was going to add onto your findings as well. What the IEC currently has, it has a political party funding portal, as I've mentioned before. But innovation tools the IEC does not have, but should. So we have a mobile USSD registration and info system. Maybe if we could add that for abantu abahlala emakhaya especially. Gamified civic education app, as I told you that I was engaging with my friends using Call of Duty. AI chatbots for voter education, probably a more dynamic one with the addition of languages, and also some civic, probably PDF documents that are in isiZulu or isiXhosa. Maybe something like that. We have civic engagement, data dashboards. We have digital democracy forum platforms and live fact-checking portals. I think Usisi was touching on that, which we need to understand if the systems that we're using for IEC are safe for us to use. So the conclusion is the IEC has made strong progress with online registration, mobile app, data dashboards, social platform, but South Africa still needs more digital innovation to truly scale civic engagement, especially for young youth, rural settings, and communities with low digital access. So investing in tools like USSD platforms, AI chatbots, gamified learning, and digital civic forums can dramatically strengthen democracy. But I go back to the fact that everyone wants our attention. So the main focus of tools, without focus, you cannot sell anything without marketing. So as we've seen all around the floor that it's awareness and safety, but everyone wants young people's attention. So if we can engage young people, probably that are influential, leverage on their numbers, or have a team of young people that we can leverage their numbers so that we can increase their participation when it comes to the voting that comes nearly. Thank you.
Siyabonga kakhulu Bayanda, sicela simshayele izandla futhi. Very interesting point around the gamification of civic education. Ukhona owazi ukuthi chaza ukuthini lokho? Gamified civic education. Who knows what that means? So how do you interpret that? So when he talks about gamifying a platform or a tool or technology, you think about how, unfortunately, we have a gambling crisis in this country. And a lot of political parties have started to speak up against that, and there's a sense that perhaps we need to scale back on some of that. But it doesn't seem that institutions that can use the idea of gamifying civic education have been utilizing them enough. So the idea that and there's a pop-up from the IEC app that says, Nancy, answer these 3 questions within the next 5 minutes to get data, WhatsApp data for the week. Those are some of the things perhaps we need to start looking into. And perhaps when we talk about IEC specific stuff, it's about voting, it's about elections specifically. But when we talk to our colleague from the GCIS, it's about government institutions in general. So when we talk about gamifying civic education, it's not just limited to the elections, but we also talk about awusitshele mhlambe ngokuthi white paper ichaza ukuthini, and you get 3 options about what a white paper phase of legislation development means. When you talk about the idea, usisukhuluma ngama-cookies, I know some of us in the room might not know what we're talking about. The internet, you're leaving breadcrumbs with every interaction that you have online. So those are cookies, those breadcrumbs, those things that say, when you get to tab 5 of your online engagement, after you've pressed next 5 times, you start getting an ad for something that you might have typed in the first page, even though what you have on page 5 is unrelated to any of that stuff that you might be engaging with at that point in time. Because ultimately, algorithms are learning your behavior. They are trying to preempt what it is that you might want to get out of that space. And so perhaps it's a question to ourselves, when we get onto the applications, the online tools, the social media, what are we asking of it that we're not presented with the information that we need to be able to live civically in the spaces that we occupy? And so perhaps we can have part of that discussion. Just as a highlight, just on Q&A, some engagement, but I want to highlight, before our colleague from the GCIS comes up, some of the discussions that we've already had. We had a provocation at the beginning of the session about the utilization of SRCs and SRC elections at higher education institutions as a case study. How has that worked? Can we learn anything of the way in which institutions of higher learning are utilizing online voting in particular to think about how we engage young people in that space? That's one part of it. The other part of it, throwing caution to the wind, the idea that we want to move everything and make it digital. What are some of the things that we need to be aware of as we start to venture into the digital space in terms of trustworthiness of the space, but also the potential for mis and disinformation that could occur? What ability do we have to verify the information that we have in that space? And so it's important to start to think about that as well. Of course, in this specific session, what we heard quite importantly is the idea of gamification. I like it. I think it could be fun, especially if we get the right pilot and the right sort of tools to be able to start the process. It could prove quite significantly in terms of the uptake of the information. Because we have some of us young kids who are addicted to things like Roblox. Think about how people got into the space of developing Roblox. When you're talking about the online streaming, Twitch as a platform is starting to be significant in this country, even though there is this urban-rural divide about who has access to certain platforms. But ultimately, the ways in which Ukuba is able to mobilize his voters on Facebook to participate and engage with his music, that's one way in which we can think about how do we leverage off of that type of following in order to do the right things that we ought to be doing in the civic space. And of course, Tabile then has also created the impression that perhaps we need to think about political ideology and the development of political education beyond the party political affiliations. How do we ensure that we all have a civic interest? We are all one-minded about the development and growth of this country. Of course, let me welcome now our final speaker, Mr. Josiah Spieler from the GCIS. He's the Director of the Intergovernmental Coordination and Stakeholder Management. A round of applause for him, please.
Greetings. Greetings to you, Program Director. Greetings to Mrs. Masinga. Greetings to the good doctor. I was just struggling with myself to pronounce whether it would be Rapo or Rapu. But yeah, greetings, doctor. Greetings to Professor Singh. Greetings to my fellow panelists, Ms. Luthuli and Mr. Gumbi. And most importantly, greetings to the august guest of this discussion, or fourth leader discussion. If we can just present from a side, roll the presentation that I shared. I think I'm going to assist you with time. Thank you so much. And just roll straight to conclusion. I think it should be me. Just jumped late to. Oh, okay, back. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Okay, I'm raising the mic so that it accommodates my height, not that my colleagues were shorter. Yeah, so there's a question around digital equity being a democratic imperative. And my Leonard participant and also on the other side potently reflected on this. But what is government doing this to bridge this gap? Quite a lot of things that are done. And we can actually start from the National Development Plan itself, where it does articulate that we require what we refer as inclusive information society. From then we boil down to two aspects as government policy and strategies align. One aspect is the digital master plan, then the other aspect is the digital roadmap. Two parallel processes, but the other one should have came first and the other should have followed. I'll explain. The digital roadmap addresses fundamentally the issue of the digital divide. Why I say so? In recognition that most, and if not really most of young people, black in particular, are not accessing this digital luxury, if we might want to call it today. The response has been that three aspects should come about. One is that there should be investment in rural communities. There should be investment in schools in terms of getting infrastructure so that we are also able to cater for those community libraries. They are also able to access digital infrastructure and also able to access this information. The other aspect is creating an environment for ICT to prosper. The participants would have touched a bit around the issue of cost of data. That's one aspect of making sure that we are creating an environment conducive for ICTs. Government has been selling off spectrum. Spectrum is important because similar to how you would have a highway where you have congested traffic, that's the similar thing we have with spectrum. So in that realization, government has said we are going to release this spectrum to the telcos. I won't mention by name. This essentially means that we are taking all this capacity that was within the TV terrestrial, hence we talk of digital migration. That's essentially just releasing spectrum or building highways for us to communicate a bit better and have more coverage. That's one aspect. Then the other aspect is really around skills and really digital literacy. Already in this country, we are struggling with literacy. If you were to look back from 1994 until now, you'll realize that only 50% of those who enroll in grade R make it to grade 12. So already we have an issue of literacy. Now we are bringing in the issue of digital literacy. Why is it the problem? It's a problem, and I'm going to jump into the misinformation and systematic threat. Because a lot of this misinformation is now being peddled through these digital devices. Remember the problem statement, half of us are already not in the space of digital. So when we get into this space, already we are vulnerable to these threats. What is the government doing this? Already there's a cyber security framework. One implementation of it is that we have a cyber hub, which is also part of those guidelines that make sure that any threat that threatens the credibility or integrity of digital assets in the country is protected. In that structure, we have defense, the Department of Defense, we have state security, we have DCDT, which is the department responsible for communication and digital technologies. It's important to have this structure because as we get into this space, there are questions about safety, there are questions about integrity. whether we are able to protect information of people, because when you register into these systems, you are giving you all the information, your addresses, everyone, so that IEC has information that is available. So we have, as government, supposed to protect that. Jumping back to the misinformation issue, it's quite concerning and really one that does manifest whenever there are elections. We would have seen at some point there was a depiction, and I want to just quote this correctly, a depiction of burning of the flag. It goes to the Constitution, Section 16, freedom of expression. But you may also want to balance it with other pieces of legislation that are already in there when it comes to misinformation. The Electoral Act, the Cybercrime Act, the Electronic Communication Act. All those aspects are there to try and assist us to manage this misinformation, but it's still very elusive. For an example, when you go to Twitter, you are able to see what is trending, what is a scandal. But all among us, we have what you call a WhatsApp. Whatever I would be sending to Spemandla here on WhatsApp, all of you won't be able to see what is there. And that is where this damage is mostly occurring. What do we need? We need all civil society to come on board, work with us as government. One platform that the IEC had, and I hope this time around, even for the local elections, they will look into that, the 411, which they had with Media Monitoring South Africa. GCIS was also part of that. As I end off, facilitators, really to appeal in that space, because this is one barrier that we have witnessed when it comes to really derailing young people into participating into elections. There was a speaker of losing trust in government institutions. And if government is not credible enough, then people are left to those who peddle misinformation, and a lot of misinformation then derives young people from really taking part in what should be their democratic right to vote. Thanks.
Can we give him another round of applause, a big one, please? Love it when speakers are aware of where we're at. I think what's been good about what you've shared, Nomzane, you've essentially just pointed the specific things that people were asking for already, around the mistrust, around the expectations for collaboration from a state institutional level, and to what extent we can start to then think about mapping the way forward. So, Cecilia Nage. Bantabasha in particular, and mbheles can we ask ourselves, where do we find ourselves currently then in the discussion around digitalization? It would be great if we could think about positing solutions, if we have ideas about how to solve the things that we're troubled by. Because I think often we underutilize such spaces where we talk only about the problems. But what are the potential solutions? Where are you in your constituency most engaged? How can we plug into where you are to ensure that the discussions that you're having in that space go somewhere? So for our colleagues from DUT, for instance, with the extent of the conversation and engagement that you're having in the space, to what extent are you engaged in what's happening on the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education based on the work that you're doing as part of leading students? How do you leverage the mother body support if you're part of a youth formation to ensure that the policy directives that you're having are used from a broader scope of young people, so that you don't limit it just to your constituency, to the card-holding members, but you move beyond that and you engage other young people whose voices might not necessarily find space inside your political party. For civil society, what are the mechanisms that you're using? Are they successful? If we look at last year's election, maybe not so. Have you had a diagnosis of what it is that you ought to be doing going forward to empower young people with the tools to be able to engage? And of course, let me establish, yes, we have issues with institutional trust. Part of that we should be asking ourselves is, how have we contributed to the story where people have a lack of trust in the outcomes of the democratic process? So yes, we might have challenges understanding perhaps what are the mechanisms that the IEC is utilizing, but the IEC, in a lot of work that they undertake, Banama PLC, they have party liaison committees. How is it that a party who sits in parliament, has legislated for amendments to the law, has the ability to go out in the media and say, we didn't know about Section 24 when you legislated for it, and we take it for granted that that's the case. And so who are we mistrusting? Are we mistrusting the IEC? Are we mistrusting the political party or the legislators? You know what I mean? So we don't cast aspersions just on one part of the stakeholder relationship, but that we all bear responsibility to some extent. Mina njengoba ngikhuluma ngisho ukuthi sengibuzile ngicela ukuthi niphamise izandla ninganginake mabe sengixaxatha I'm filling the space as a facilitator ukuthi nikwazi ukuphakamisa izandla nebe ngicabanga. We've got 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands, 5 hands. Ngicela ukuma ku5 kwamanje ke bafethu laba abawu2 abaphakamisa manje ngicela nime kancane. So we have 1 2 3 4 5 okwamanje. Just for now. I saw the other 2 hands, but we'll come back to them. Let's take them.
Greetings. My name is Hantem Teshan, the SRC Finance Officer.
Wherever you might be, so that we can see you. I apologize.
Greetings again. My name is Hantem Teshan, the SRC Finance Officer. So our voting system happens through the IEC. That is an online platform that is used by the Durban University of Technology. So the process goes as people join the platform as individual candidates, but you can have your political party supporting you. So that way, we can say that all students are catered for, so that it is not only political parties that are allowed to have candidates, but you can also go as an individual candidate, have your own manifesto, and that way you can present yourself in a way that all students can be catered for. So moving on from that, the balance between the mother body and the institutional policies is that as an individual, you need to know what you want and what the students that you're representing want. So that way, you can then have, what do we call this? We have lekotlas and DUTWA, whereby we engage with clubs and societies and get their idea of the Durban University of Technology that they want to see in the future. That way we can then get all the ideas, discuss them as the SRC, and then find solutions and a better way to lead our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that input. I think the idea of engaging clubs and societies outside of your own party infrastructure is quite a good one, especially because at DUT, I know the poetry and arts space is very active as well. How do you respond to some of the political provocation that comes from some of the arts that's contributed in that space? Very interesting. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, ma'am. I want to engage from a point that was included by Miss Luthuli, which speaks to capacity.
Yeah.
Because we might have leaders within our societies, but they do not have capacity. We have a situation whereby young leaders no longer believe in politics because, in a sense, even in terms of the deployment in strategic position within our government, it has been through a cadre deployment, but it has never responded to the capacity of the people. And now we have young people who think that you can only get capacity from institutions of higher learning only, but we have spaces within our societies that we need to respond to as young people. So I think what has been done in the institution that I come from mostly is that when leaders come in, they are being capacitated not to actually be at their own political corner, but to understand that there has to be an inclusive environment for all students. So that is how we have tried to maintain that even students from different political parties are represented, and even in terms of our political attires. In some instances, when we address students, we do not wear them because of those kind of engagement. But when we respond back to the concept of capacity, I think MEM has made it very well, and it's something that the government itself needs to respond to, because we can have leaders that come from universities, but they think that they are too smart for the societies. But we need to shift the idea and make sure that even the leaders from just in general societies, the leaders from political parties in wards, in regions, they have the capacity to lead, not that they think that the people who can lead societies come from institutions of higher learning alone. And another point that I wanted to include is that from this seminar, I think it has been impactful from us as young people, but then we need to go as much as going out to even those one in societies, because some of them, they are not able to see this because they do not have access to data. Those solutions that we have provided today, they respond to digital divide, and we need to make sure that even us as young people, when we go back to our societies, do not be arrogant wearing your t-shirt coming from a university and say you are not helping the youth, but you need to make sure that even in the society that you come from, you make them understand to vote to IEC, and you make them understand what is democracy, because when we respond to what is democracy now, when we see what has been happening in Burkina Faso and what is happening in the military coups, it shows that the young people, when they are taking the space, they are implementing something. So now we must do it differently, because if you are talking about that kind of leadership, what then you respond in terms of continuous leadership? Because after the president in Burkina Faso, what will happen? We still have not have answers to that. We cannot follow a system that is not actually reliable as yet. But this one of ours that we're using, the democracy, it is reliable, it was happening, but then the political systems that are destroying it. So it must be us that go back to the society and make sure that the society understands democracy and we make them participate in democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for the two gentlemen that have contributed so far. You make a very important point around academic institutions being responsive to community needs, that academic institutions in particular should not be spaces for, the intellectualization and problematization, but it must translate in some ways into meaningful steps around developing specific communities. I had an interesting, I had an interesting time where I saw the community is able to pass through the campus because it's not a gated space in terms of that campus. And just visually, it promotes the idea that the community ought to be a part of that institution and that institution's work. And so as someone who grew up in poetry, so sometimes you romanticize things because there are still problems with that. But how do we make that a part of the fiber of academic institutions, keeping in mind things like safety and security, et cetera, but ultimately that those gates that we have at Main Gate at UKZN, that we have at Steve Biko campus, should not be an opportunity to keep people out who are genuinely interested in the substantive parts of what the institution is able to provide, but ultimately an opportunity to welcome people in as opposed to keeping them out. Number 3.
Thank you so much, Program Director. My name is Mohali. I am from Africa Unite, and I think I jotted down a few points here. But I think before I can even speak on those points that I jotted down is that I think youth participation is not specifically because the IEC is not very much digital. I think youth participation comes from benefitangani. If you are in civil society and you have engaged with young people, they'll ask you one question if you tell them to vote. So basically, it's the political parties who should say. I think Ubayanda made a very good example with Heineken. If we see Heineken, we know we are going to party. Whether or not, we will make sure we have that money to go and party.
And other brands.
Yes.
Heineken is promoted by IEC. Yeah, maybe just
Yes.
use the more
and,
derivative.
And other alcohol beverage brands, So basically, there's something to benefit. I think another thing that rose from the participants was the issue of lines. I mean, if you look at the unemployed youth, we woke up at 4 o'clock to go and stand on those queues. So I think digital is a good thing, yes, for certain young people. But what is it that we are doing for other young people who are probably looking for what? It's the sense of for who and for what am I voting? It's not the sense of I'm not voting because it's not digital, or it's the sense of who and for what. So it's the benefit. So I think in the marketing of the IEC as we go to the local elections, is a matter of putting the answer in that for what, maybe not saying canvassing for other political parties, but something that could make a young person who has lost hope in voting to say, oh, the reason, because we all say you are voting
Sorry,
for
Mohale,
your
and I apologize
democracy.
to everyone else.
Yes.
So young people are on social media.
Yeah.
What's the direct benefit that they derive, and how can we use that to trigger participation? Because I get to see online value.
Yes.
Why? What's happening
Yes.
online that gets us so addicted in a different way than the political participation doesn't? For instance, that's the thing. That's in the minutia that we're trying to grasp for. Uti, what's happening? Like, how do we get people triggered? In the same way in which we saw the March for Women for Change, the whole country was somewhat at a standstill. That level of mass mobilization around a specific issue, how do we get people responsive to that?
Yeah. So I think I'll make another typical example. Khona umuntu othi angeke ngithenge kaWoolies kuyabiza, but uWoolies ine target market yawo. So I think on those socials, it should be something that attracts young people. There should be something when a young person sees it, he's able to say, "Ngiyovota because of 1 or 2 or 3," not because ngizoti mhlape what everyone says. You know, you are voting for your democracy. The democracy is still in the hands of the people who are in parliament, anyways, even if we vote for them.
Yeah.
So I think it's that part, Yogoti, how do you bring them, the attraction of young people to actually want to go and vote? It's the very most important element. And if we can get that right, then, I mean, surely we'll have quite a lot of young people because we are already online anyway. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the round of applause for Mohale. Where was number 4? Number 4 was here. Number 4, Beula, and then number 5 was that side. Yes, okay. Yes, you were number 4.
No, thank you very much once again for the opportunity. No, my take on this matter is very simple. Just to prove that even the leadership of this country recognizes the need for the South African people, particularly young people, to be integrated into the technological platforms and for them to truly know how it operates and how it works and how it will benefit us as citizens of this country. The president, I think in 2019, formed what is called, I know our president is famous for forming commissions, but he formed a 4th Industrial Revolution Commission, which was headed by Professor Marwala. And this 4th Industrial Revolution Commission was given, in terms of its terms of references, it was given these 2 important pointers. It was to investigate how much does the digital divide exist in South Africa, the gap that exists. And then secondly, how can we be able to use technological advancement to circumvent issues of developmental challenge. So, and this commission came up with numerous and a plethora of findings. But out of all these findings, I was particularly keen, or I was particularly touched by this one, which said it is important that in South Africa there must be an investment in human capital. It's therefore said a lifelong learning system that delivers stockable, industry-aligned micro-credentials to reskill workers and to prepare youth for the jobs of the 4th Industrial Revolution. Because the global world is fast moving and shifting into the digital economy. So in order to acclimatize South African citizens, we must also equip them with these pertinent and ancillary skills, which will be able to assist them further. So now, my take on this matter is, if we're honest, we know that where, for instance, I got my secondary and my private and my primary rudimentary education, it was a very underprivileged school. And the nature and the type of education that is being imparted on ordinary citizens and young people of this country do not capacitate them to be able to play a meaningful role in this digital environment that we're speaking about. So now, I am saying, in terms of this civic education that we're doing, we all know in South Africa, I'm in politics, we all know that when many people, when they vote, they do not vote for the manifesto. That's what we're saying here.
Yeah.
And it resonates with us. But on an ordinary South African citizen, South African citizens vote because they love a person and it resonates better with them. So they will say, I will vote for Spamandla because we love Spamandla.
Very.
So that is dangerous going forward for our democracy, because now, what does it mean? It means it gives way and room for political demagogues, and it gives room for political leaders to misuse their political space and their political influence to be able to advance their own selfish interest.
Yep.
So now, this is what is most important. People, at some point I used to interact with people, and when I interacted with them, I said, but you voted for this party, what does it offer? And
So
said,
far,
no,
fair.
okay, what does it offer? And they said, no, it doesn't offer anything. We just trust the leader.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Hey, tough one, because part of what was shared earlier is around the idea about influences with the capacity to mobilize people. Not people show up for the person without recognizing what's the and what they're there for. They ask questions later. It's like this thing of if you see someone running, are you going to ask them first why you're running, or are you just going to run and then ask questions later? And so that becomes a challenge. When we think about social media, when we think about influencing, think about also what is the avatar. What are the descriptors of young people that you're thinking about as you respond to this question of digitalization? Because part of what we haven't responded to is the segmentation of young people. I said earlier that I'm moving out of that bracket very soon, but at the same time, I don't relate to the things that 21-year-olds are speaking about now. How do we market for all of those different segments of young people? Of course, we know that 18 to 19-year-olds specifically are a challenge in terms of voter turnout, but that whole spectrum of young people doesn't turn up for anything in particular when it comes to political and civic participation. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair.
I think the next hand is there, please. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I was not going to allow the system to shut me out.
I won't do that to you. I'm not a political party.
Thank you, Chair. No, as Youth League of the African Transformation Movement, post-elections, we conducted what I can say is a post-mortem. We engaged the youth on what could have been the issue, what led to those decisions. So one, which was the biggest one, they said they feel like elections are generally tokenism, generally loosely translating to being gaslighted. Even if they go to vote, their votes are not going to make a difference because allegedly, now as figure IEC, they get cooked. So, allegedly,
yes. Yes.
Another issue was the issue of Section 24. People had no knowledge of that. Most young people had no knowledge. It was a matter of, there's an hour left, quickly go and fix your Section 24 issues. When you get there to EVD, aksalungi. So it's another thing that needs to be fixed, a correct timeline of Section 24 and make sure that people understand and know how to access it. Another issue with the portal, IEC, many of its students, especially KZN in Pinetown, because that's where I was based, that's where I was deployed, they registered to vote emakhaya abo, and then when they go to university, they tried to go to the portal and they tried to re-register, and they said that the system approved. But comes the voting day, they are not on the voters' roll, they don't appear. So I think that's another technical glitch that needs to be fixed by IEC. I want to get lastly, the jargon that is used in political spaces, like serious spaces, IEC, it doesn't necessarily appeal to all of us.
Yeah.
I deal with a lot of English in my postgraduate studies. I don't need that huge English when I get into my Facebook, I bump into a post in English and cool. Please try to simplify, make it ibe into ekwaziyo uba sikwazi uyifunda nathi. We have an issue of abantu baseparlament abavuma u-30% uba ibe i-pass mark, and do you think we will have the capacity of understand these huge jargons so those are the other things that need to be fixed. Thank you, Chen.
No. All good. Thank you very much for your input. A round of applause. Yeah, they're definitely meaningful insights. Elasemlazi.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu mfethu. Sanibonani. Igama lami uSihle ngwaSikhakhane Sibongo. Here today I'm with the Center for Community Development as I assist them with their social media and all other stuff. But also on the side, I'm the founder of Ezasemlazi Community News, which is an online news platform. So I just want to talk to IEC with partnering with the media or different media houses. Look, obviously there've been newspapers, there've been radio, it's still there, but the truth of the matter is it doesn't reach young people.
Not CIS.
Sorry?
Not CIS. Ukon.
Excuse me. So I would like to strongly emphasize the need for IEC to relook the media partnership it chooses, especially when the objective is to increase youth participation. The reality is the traditional media, like radio, newspapers, no longer reach the youth or the young people effectively. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm not even sure. But most of the youth consume information almost entirely through social media, especially through local, reliable, community-based digital platforms. So what I suggest is shift more resources towards online platforms where the youth already spend more time. And then also, secondly, partner with online community media outlets that have established trust and direct access to local youth and audience. Number 3, work with influencers, content creators, and community journalists who speak to young people and a language and style they respond to. Lastly, use digital tools, short videos, reels, live sessions, interactive content to make voter education more engaging and relative. So that is my input. If maybe the IEC can look into that, we are there and we're also willing to assist. Thank you.
Thank you very much for putting your hand up. The other part about community media, social media in particular, as a space-specific action, what I haven't seen at the moment is a response to municipal and local issues that has the right sort of viability online. So if you're able to curate a movement of your ward or of your city on your online space, or at least create opportunities for civic education using social media, either a TikTok that specifically speaks to bylaws that are in your community, that would help greatly in emphasizing the capacity of that space. Quite often, unfortunately, your capacity, and I'm speaking about young people and social media content creators in particular, gets lost in the national conversation because we don't know who started the wave, and so whether you're just getting on the wave because it's popular or it's because something you're genuinely interested in and have the capacity to formulate educational material around. So I think that helps So in the same way in which we're talking about public trust in terms of the IEC, there's also a trust that needs to be carried by the content creators in terms of the quality and ability to communicate the types of information that's available. So sizoza kuwena as an influencer of that space if you show that you have that capacity as well. Just, you know, my tidbit, ngingaba advisor at a fee for any of you guys. So there were two hands. There were two hands initially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. And then of course the judge. Yeah. Can we start with the judge, if you don't mind? I don't know if the mic is, colleagues. Let's legelele. Okay, now it is.
Congratulations to all the participants, whether on the platform or on the virtual platform or in the audience. I'm so impressed by the contributions and the participation. So, you know, a friend of mine who's a published and award-winning author said to me that there's no bestseller published, or there's no bestseller by anyone over the age of 60. So I stopped writing. But the point I'm making is that there's something about a youthful brain that brings innovation intuitively, naturally. My generation has a sell-by date, and we need to be replaced on the shelves. So that this pitch, this event is not only about recruiting or getting young people interested in getting to register or to vote. There's a bigger picture here. Those may be short-term goals, but the bigger picture is how do you get to become leaders in a democratic society? And why are we talking about digital specifically? Because pre-1994, in fact, pre-2008, before the age of apps and all sorts of technological innovation, the enemies of democracy were visible. You could see the army, you can see hard-copied media. Now, the enemy is very intangible, and you don't know where it's coming from. Someone spoke about cyber crimes and cyber attacks. So you can't expect the geriatrics to be that army of people who are competent in the management and knowledge of technology to be able to combat this new enemy. And I read this morning that it's not only the traditional enemies of democracy that we need to watch out for. It's the new economy. These people who own the technologies, who are super rich, and who actually command elections and, by extension, democracy. How do we combat that kind of attack on democracy? And Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst form of government, but it's the best thing that we have for the time being. Until something better comes along, that's what we have. So when I need something to be sorted out on my phone, I go to a young person. One of our colleagues, we were on a mission in Mozambique. He left my table at the breakfast table and he went to speak to a single woman with 2 children. I thought, what is he doing, a charm offensive or what? But he was actually looking at the children. He wanted his phone to be fixed. So that's the first thing I'm saying. We need a cohort. We need a bigger cohort. We need an army of digitally competent young people with young brains, innovation, and a passion for democracy, which is the next point. As I said, we have our expiry dates. People who come to the IEC have been there for like 20, sometimes even 30 years. So, it's an organization that is an employer of choice. Now, as a young person, you can't be parachuted into the IEC as a CEO, right? But you start somewhere, and you grow with the organization. And it's not only the IEC that's going to be an employer, it is the whole package of democracy, whether it's a political party, whether it's a candidate, whether it's the institutions of democracy, which is the next point I want to make. We are witnessing the erosion of our institutions of democracy, and we're seeing it playing out in reality TV with the Madlanga Commission, right? So this is the fragility of democracy, because people, human beings, operate it. And human beings are greedy, but they're also good. And that good and greedy and evil people need to be managed within these institutions. And so when we allow our institutions to be corrupted, as we see in the Madlanga Commission, in the Zondo Commission, that's when things go wrong. But we need you. We need you to spot those moments. Bangladesh was an example where there were little smokes going on for years. But the flame blew up when the incumbent president decided to appoint all her cronies into the public service. And they chased her out. She's now hiding in India. I'm just saying that there's a tipping point where people can take just that much. But the Arab Spring did not survive. Why? Because social media can mobilize, but social media cannot organize. And this is a question that Ms. Luthuli raised pertinently. What did we get right before 1994, and what are we getting wrong post-1994? Okay? And the big thing is, pre-1994 was a mass democratic movement. I can talk about it because I come from that generation. A mass democratic movement, the people spoke. Nothing happened without the people. Lost the touch with the representatives lost the touch with the people. And this is what democracy is all about. So, what do we do now about where we are? I think we're at another tipping point. Don't waste a crisis. And the Madlanga Commission and all these other unraveling of what went on and how bad things have gotten, while we thought we were electing people who represented us to do good. So don't waste a crisis. But then what do? I don't know whether anybody recognized the words of a song that Ms. Luthuli used. You know, my father was a garden boy, and my mother was a
kitchen girl.
Kitchen girl, and I'm a. I'll leave you to fill it in.
Yeah.
Who are you? Who are you?
Yeah.
But I think there's some lessons to be learned from the works of Paulo Freire. Are you familiar with that? You're in university and you're students. It's published online, free. Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. How to organize people so that you take the people and their voices when you become leaders. And hopefully you will be leaders that have a significant following resembling a mass democratic movement for change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Judge Pillay. And of course, the judge is also a commissioner of the commission, and so, you give grace. So we have some hands on that side. And then we'll go to Bafo because he's being a gentleman. Sibonge. Mike. Yes,
Working now. Greetings. My name is Nkosazana Nxumalo, who is the current SRC Deputy President at UKZN. I support President Inkosi when he says one of the panelists should have been an SRC member, because here as we are sitting, I see Gungundlovu TVET, I see DUT, I see UKZN here. And we are facing a huge issue as people that deal with young people. So the issue that we are facing is that you find that young people that are within our institutions are voting only for elections that are based in universities, but they do not have interest when it comes to elections outside of the university institutions. So an example that I'm going to give, I'm in a university that's based in Ward 36, whereby we had elections last year, and when we checked the voters' turnout, you find that in a university with 8,000 plus students, only 8% voted. So I do want the IEC to look into it, whereby they have programs or events that are based on university world of things, because now they only have interest within the institutions. But next time also, when you guys have such platforms, can you not come as overseers at universities, but where you have panelists within the structure, whereby you're also able to voice out our concerns regarding the elections? Thank you very much.
You're welcome to do it now.
To do what, sir?
To voice out your concerns.
Yeah, I'm saying that one, that we're having an issue of students only voting within the university institutions, but not voting when it comes to ward elections.
Oh, so they only vote inside, oh.
Yeah,
okay.
SRC elections, they only vote within the SRC elections. But when it comes to ward elections, example, next year you're having local elections, you'll find that they won't have interest of voting in those platforms.
Okay, no, I understand now.
Thank you very much.
I thought the percentage was also like an institutional thing, but yeah, thank you so much for that feedback.
Siyabonga. Yes, Bonga Program Director. Shortly, I was hugely covered by Amalata speakers. Yeah. Ngumunye wabaphekezeli usizwa kakunene ngisuka eMfolozi College. No, into or just an aspect that I wanted to cover is IEC. Start by thanking IEC for the initiative, the rest of the initiative, and going on and on having the research that is proper, that is talking to the issues that are affecting the community, and your interest to lure more of the youth into the system and having to vote. But I will have to highlight a few things that were already highlighted, just to make it a proper submission to IEC, that at least in the process of you having to go on and having all what has been presented, look into things that are making your credibility doubted in most of the aspects. Like the one that was highlighted, that how do we trust in the current juncture, how do we trust your participation and your independence in terms of you having to count, after counting, having to be challenged around the issues of the trust that we are talking about. And also the rooms that are opened by the constitutions in allowing after the process of registration, more especially the highlights and the example that I would do is on the by-elections.
Yeah.
We understand that on the by-elections, people who are meant to vote are those who are residing in that ward. But even on the spreadsheet, IEC could see that there are people who, in this ward 3 that we are in, but they are externals that are coming in huge numbers, that is called a passing, in huge numbers from the other wards to the wards. And that will be allowed by the IEC to happen, whereas they see that a lot of people have been transported from the other end to this, and that is allowed as one of the process that is fair in that process. And that is also posing the credibility to the IEC. We might talk to most of the examples that are talking that are international and all the rest, but if the IEC could fix the things, the aspects that we are talking to, and those more especially that are used most are the youth from the institutions to be transported to, and that aspect, which is why I'm applauding the the IEC for doing that, the initiative and education that is happening. Because if that is happened, is properly assessed and also presented to youth, they will be aware of the consequences and also the effect that will make people to doubt even to participate in such.
Yeah.
So the only points that I could suggest is that when you are looking to that, you should also understand that there is, in nature, there are people who are staunch members of the parties. So where you can talk loud as you can, but they are only that they are going to be interested in what is the parties are saying mostly. And if they are disappointed by that particular part, they will never vote. And lastly, it will be this floating vote that we've been observing since 1994. The floating vote that is from COPE, as an example, is floated to EFF, it went on to MK. Now, you can count the floating vote of people, more especially the middle class, that are assessing the sequence of things. They will go by, and there is nothing that much that can be done by IEC in that aspect. So it's only we preach to those who are willing to repent and leave the rest. Thank you.
How?
Sorry.
Okay, no, ngiyakuzwa mnumzane, but I think this is the point of the gathering, that we can't leave people behind. So, ngiyakuzwa about the floating vote, and you had started about, first you made the mention of people who are diehard supporters of one party. But abafuna ukuvotela enye into ngaphandle kwaleyo nhlangano. Is that a legitimate stance in a democratic dispensation where we have a government that has about 40% actual turnout in terms of the electoral size? So if you transpose electoral turnout to the voting age population, there's only about 40% of the eligible voters that essentially elected this current government that we sit in. That's less than 50%, that's closer to 30% abantu abakhala ngawa. So it means to 60% of the South African citizens who are eligible to vote, they did not cast their vote for the current sitting parliamentarians. What does that mean about the continued and ongoing legitimacy of our country? Yes, it's not a South Africa problem, as Tabile mentioned. Many countries sit with a similar ratio. But for us, and why I think it's good that we continue to applaud the IEC, is that the thinking continues. We continue to question ourselves about how to bring more people on board. My thing with the last thing that you mentioned, so they can get onto the wagon of saying we are critical thinkers, we have the capacity to maneuver. If it means for local government I vote for one party, but I vote for something else at provincial government, then it's something else. Then it's something that we ought to be thinking about, educating people that it's possible to do that, to gamify even voting, because with the advent of the third ballot, it's possible to cast 3 different votes on National Election Day, for instance. At local government, it's always been possible to cast a different number of votes, either when of course the situation is different when you're in metro versus a local municipality, but we all understand some of those mechanisms, and I think, yeah, it's worrying me. Cool. Can I come this side? About 2. I saw those 2 hands. I'm not taking any more hands, colleagues. This is cut. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Program Director, for an opportunity to speak. My name is Mbheles from ATM. Allow me to speak for a youth person at Njamanzi, Ngoloti, at the back of Ulundi. This is a challenge. In fact, my contribution, I must first say, IEC should understand that you belongs in an nexus, in an ecosystem of these other departments that we are having in our government. For an example, you'll have your Home Affairs, your GCIS, and the others, and many others. And if you talk of digital democracy, you should actually take it out of yourselves and also include this department so that you belong in this nexus. Now you've got a problem. It should be your interest that when you go to the online system of Home Affairs, and if I've lost my ID, I want to go and do another ID, it would be a struggle to log in there and secure an appointment. So meaning now it hits the ineffectiveness or efficiency of Home Affairs have got these externalities that are now affecting IEC. So at the intergovernmental relations, these are the issues that should be then discussed to say, how do we then deal with this? Now you come to the issues of it has been said many times, the issues of the data cost and the role that is played by ICASA, the Department of Communications. What is happening? Why is this issue not being dealt? Why it looks like ICASA has got not it to bite and deal with this issue, because it now affects also IEC in promoting the democracy as a Chapter 9 institution. These are the issues that you should interconnect to deal and pass this theory that you guys are presenting today. Now, here is another element that I want to also throw in this thing, is the issue of electricity connectivity. You've got a village there that is not connected to electricity. We talk of digital divide here. They still say that at least let's get the electricity before you even talk of digital divide, because you can't even connect with any instrument. So this is the issue that you're dealing with. And then you hear the people making noise and the environmentalists that are making noise to say that, no, but the electricity of South Africa is from, we're using coal and carbon emission. And I'm saying for those people, I love the dirty energy as long as it's going to connect me and also make me to bridge the digital divide. Now, it comes to the issue of if you look at the NDP, just energy transition, you cannot separate yourself from the just energy transition. As much as you're not the role players, but at intergovernmental, you should play a role in there to say that this just energy transition must happen because it affects, because the voters are staying there where there is a problem with the and this issue if it's not resolved. So those are the issues that I wanted. Let me wrap and end it there because of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, brother. Can you give me a round of applause? I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of the conceptualization of this gathering. The idea of digital democracy is, as we've mentioned earlier, is not just about voting, but it's how do we connect the idea of a democratic dividend across the board, so that, because ultimately we have a situation where the IEC sees lower voter turnout and it's not primarily driven by a distrust in the IEC. If they are the ones who are helping us to cast the vote, people want to see at the end of the vote what are the outcomes, tangible outcomes. We talked about things being immediate and urgent, but people just want to see a road being built, the streetlights connected, their ability to access Home Affairs in a meaningful way. And so how do we ensure that we create enough impetus for all of that collaboration to happen that drives more participation at ward level, that drives more participation at local municipality level, that ultimately ends up with a more engaged society. At the moment, it seems that we are engaging in the salacious gossip of what's coming out of our commissions, the salaciousness of the detail, but ultimately, How many of us are connected to the outcomes of those commissions in a meaningful way? How many of us know who has been suspended and not suspended since the inception of both the ad hoc committee as well as the Madlanga Commission? How many of us know, and we can track back from the State Capture Commission in terms of the results of that? It's not enough to just say it's not visible or that it isn't happening, because there have been real results of some of those commissions, but we haven't been able to follow up in a meaningful way, ultimately leading us to where we are right now. We have 3 hands this side, and then I'll take those 2 hands. If you get this, because of time, given that you'd spoken earlier. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go.
No, ngicela ukubingelela indlu yonke ibingeleleke no MC wethu. Igama uBonkosi Ngcobo from Isithabile Community Women's Center.
Yebo.
Ngixolisa ukubamba ngesiZulu ukutranslate ngaba ngesibonisi
ngizama ngendlela yami nje nami.
Ngiyabonga.
Bazongeza bangizwayo kodwa ke.
Ngiyabonga. Mhlasimpe nganya sekhaya ku3. Okokuqala kuzothi i-digital siyayibona ikhona la isisakhona empumputheni. Eniyofisa ngelanga nesikhansele kulesizwe ngiyazibona izingane zishaya ingisi lazinhle. Nazo futhi mina sizincome ngokufunda abathe bakufumana. Nakho kokuqala angilale ngivote ngalolu hlobo enilishoyo lomdigital lo. Bese sesizwa kuthiwa izinamba esahlangane. Njoba sikwazi ukulala sifake imali emabhenki. Sesiyeza kuthiwa imali izithathwe umunye hamba ukhuluma naye asimazi. Njoba sesinenkinga kaSasa no 350. Uthi uyofuna 350 wakuthiwa hayi sasingekho mhla apply kuphambana izinamba. Sesikhuluma ngokuvota ke manje ngomdigital. Phezulu kokuthi silahlekelwa amavoti esawumphysical aduke. Sekuzoba kanjani ke ngolomdigital ngalamavoti lawo. Right, siyadlula lapha mntana enkosi. Nakho kwesibili. Cha, niyasifaka kulomdigital ngoba sangathi uqhamuka ngenhla. Nawe lo othe wakwenza wagqoka kahle. Kodwa manje uyasiphika empilweni esiphila ngokuqiniso. Lo mdigital ongesinikeza amanzi. Namhlanje uyazibona umuhle kanjani. Usitshela umdigital kulungile. Futhi lento enzeka kahle ke namuhla. Kune council abantu caucus ngala eceleni. Nayo futhi yanqamana kahle sila. Isigcina nayo kulungile. Mhlambe musungilapha ke mntana enkosi yona yinhle. Njengoba ke sineyindawo engenabo gesi namabangane ahanjwayo, bese ke uyangilapha ukuthi ke siyaphuma manje siyobatshela. Uyangibona ke ngiphethe ifoni khona umfowethu lapho ogqoke kahle uzwaveza lapho WhatsApp waveza ama group esikona. Kunama group esikona lasinendaba nawo but akhona akayiniki information lesidingayo. Njengamanje ngilonke ngingene ku intweni nganyamile IEC bani le kungichazela yona. Uportal ngazi umportal waportal. Ngiyawudlala la lo portal awuna une English enzima. Yazi uthi ayigugulisha nayo yakuphika futhi kwenye indawo anti ngisho. So now ngiyafuna ukuyichecka le yokufundisa ngqondo kwethu ukuthi ngempela ngale show space esinayo ka 2026 benisiyekeleni IEC nemkhabane emihle kangaka yonke leminyaka le niyasiyeka sesibheka manje la kulom IEC ka 2026 njoba sihlela sonke nanga nje ngiyomkhampeni ngiyamjaha cabanga ke ngiyamjaha uATM sengiphume sengelinye iqembu sesiba ngokufundisa abantu ke ungayi ngala uza ngala nanga no ANC naye ngala naye umile nemkhonto noma ibuye bamile la ungayi ngala uza ngala sesiconfuse abantu ke manje ke nababasazi sethi ngiyangicela siyibuke mntaka baba yona yinhle kodwa ke asiyibukeni confusion esiyicreate ke emphakathini wethu. I think ngiyabonga.
No, I think I get most of what you said. There are some things mhlambe la ngithe ukusala khona kancane kodwa singayixoxa mhlambe over lunch nayo. There's still a lot of icon lunch guys benazi. But ultimately Sir was sharing his feedback on the idea perhaps that we might be centering the digital democracy aspects of things, these tools, these online tools, without insight in terms of their utility, their ability to be used by different communities, some communities who themselves currently don't have access to things like electricity, etc. But ultimately, also the consideration around language, how it has the ability to be isolating. Yeah, it closes off certain aspects of this information from certain communities as a result of that. But also the other then contestation, and perhaps where I might give some clarity here, is now we have had a conversation about digital democracy, is are we asking people to go out and go and use that to campaign? Primarily, okwamanje cha asithi hambani yoyenza sithi laba bayenzayo cela basilekelele to reach out to more people. The sort of the hypothesis noma la siqale khona sithe we recognize that young people are not voting, but we also see a lot of activity that pertains to young people's involvement online. So laba ba online already, how do we make sure that their participation is driven in a meaningful direction to ensure ukuthi bayawazi ama bylaws omphakathi? Njengoba wazi ukuthi khona full council sitting that we're having in this room, not a lot of people, I can even say in this room safely, khona bebengazi inhlobo. It's possible. Manje mkhwanazi. But ultimately, the idea is that some people don't have access to that information, even though they are online. How do we ensure that the content that they are consuming is aligned to their own development, particularly in the democratic space that we occupy? Part of what was shared earlier is the idea that it's not just an IEC problem, but it's an intergovernmental relations problem. That yes, we have GCIS, but even in the ways in which GCIS is the end user of government systems by and large. They communicate what's already been decided by and large. But how do we ensure that in the process of making policy and decision making, that we are constantly engaged in that space? It doesn't become a case of us as consumers only, but we are able to give input meaningfully. So you need right to know. I hope I'm not misrepresenting your institution, sir. And then, of course, on the other hand, but those two hands in gears, so we have umnomzane with the Kangol. Ngagcina kuyiKongol. Ngiyaxolisa siswami kuzobuya kuwena ungasabi.
Sanbonani, thank you, Program Director. I'm Ben Madoko from the Right to Know campaign. I'm also from the Center for Civil Society in UKZN. Yes. I'm coming here representing the Center for Civil Society. No, I'll be quick because I know we are pressed of time. The question that we need to answer is we recognize young people don't vote. That is a most important question. Then you talk about digitalizing election and so on. But we need to make young people come to the election. I think the gentleman next to me said to us that we know that when we go and buy this type of a product, what to expect, and we are motivated to go there and buy that product. I don't want to mention because I'm not here to promote any product. But IEC can only tell people to come and vote, but the political parties must attract young people to come and vote, because young people, they don't vote for the IEC. They vote for political parties. But I think is the right time now, because we need to invest in terms of education. We need voter education. People must be told or taught why it's important for you to vote. That talk about self-guarding our democracy. Because 1994, we didn't vote as black people. I'm talking particularly from my background because I'm a black person. Then everyone came in their numbers because voting was something that was for exclusive certain group of people. So now people must understand why it's important to vote 30 years after democracy. I think it's about time now that we go to churches, educate people in churches. IEC must partner with churches, because I also belong in a church. Everyone, most of the time, belong to a church. And also, we need to partner with schools. At the same time, we need to introduce the topic that we are sidestepping, the one that talk about electoral reforms. I think it would answer the question that the gentleman have asked about, why must I vote for you? That electoral reforms talk about president being directly elected, talk about mayors being directly elected, talk about premiers being directly elected, so that when we go to elections, people must have a choice. If I want to be a president, I think that I'm good enough to be a president. I must stand and say, I want to be a president. I must tell the South Africans that why they must vote for me. Maybe that will help more people to come. Some people are saying that it will make those who are rich to contest for power. But anything that will assist in making people to come in their numbers, we should take that opportunity to discuss it. I'm not saying that let's advocate for it for now, but I'm saying that if political parties cannot draw young people to come in their numbers, surely we should open a new discussion. That is my take, that if need be, the issue of electoral reforms must be brought on the table so that we talk about it, and then from there we might, because I'm not in favor of this thing of influencers, that we must take people who are what celebrities, they must be influencers and tell people why they must vote, and then we must follow them. Because I'm not following any influencer, Muna.
Yeah.
I'm not a young person, but I'm not saying that it's wrong to follow influencer, because I know that. Let me end there. I don't want to waste a lot of time, but that's my contribution for
Thank
today.
you so much,
Thank you.
sir. And of course, a round of applause for him. 1 minute for these two hands, given that you've already spoken. 1 minute. 1 minute.
I'd just like to speak on, especially on the youth participation. I believe that with IEC, you guys are aware of how the youth, how can I explain this? You guys are aware of the effect or how the youth is behaving. However, you're not looking into the root cause. You know, for example, you've made an example with social media engagements with TikToks, gaming, and so forth.
Silana ngoba siyabuza. Not siyabuza. They're not aware, so we're asking in earnest. Why is it happening in that way, and how can we make it come into the space?
And that's what I'm trying to answer.
Sure, that's what I was just making sure. Siyabuza, like guys, siyacela, sicela nisitshele, asazi, as you're saying, yeah.
Yes, and people were making an example of social media. Mina as for example, if I would see a TikTok, I see vote, I would scroll. I'm being honest. I would scroll and look for something else that is interesting me. You understand? So now when we're going to social media and we're saying, okay, we're tackling it and we're trying to do gaming or anything, is it interesting to the youth? That means we must take abantu that are like, oh, Mr. Gumbi, that understand that are the youth. Because if you create a game or an advert, I'm not interested in that. Because awuyazi market yami uyabo, but yena mhlawumbe uzoyazi. So I think it's very important that IEC understands the people that they're trying to approach. You know, kungabi ukuthi sifuna youth, but the roots of how to actually interact with the youth, and also to understand that ayifani youth. Khona mina umfundi wase-UKZN, khona omunye usiphesihle ohlele ekhaya ongenzi lutho onga-understandi nanokuthi yini IEC. You know, so I think also understanding that and backgrounds of youth in Nayo itself is that as much as go on social media, akusiwo wonke umuntu that understands or is engaging to listen to enkhuluma ngazo. Ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Interestingly, what I've found in this country is I see a lot of TikTok content, but I see a lot of TikTok content on WhatsApp statuses and on Facebook. You know what I mean? So people go and create the content on the app on TikTok, but then they export it from TikTok and they flight it on other social media. So what does that mean about people's engagement on those platforms? Immunity, Lord Mnumzan. Back to 10 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. My question is based on, not to interrogate the IEC, but lento ukuthi mostly I am a foot soldier on the ground in terms of the political party that I represent. And I also try as much, not necessarily to say to help the IEC, but obviously as a person who canvasses for votes, I also make it a point ukuthi it's my duty as well to inform the people that I meet on the ground, ukuthi, what am I here for and why voting is so important. So one of the challenges that I have as a person who helps people to register to vote and whatnot is that I don't know if the IEC has had a conversation with Home Affairs to say, I don't know, as a possible solution, ukuthi, instead of trying to first register the person in order for them to vote, is there no way that the state, working with the IEC, could say, possibly when people, obviously we come through giving birth. So if maybe possibly Home Affairs could, with the IEC, kube nendlela yokuthi abantu babe to skip the registration process. Ukuthi, yes, the old youth fought for vote and all of that, but if it's so important, why can it not be seamlessly integrated to umuntu, every person that is born in South African or who is born in South Africa, obviously documentation-wise and whatnot, babe nalo ilungelo to vote, instead of just registering and then you have to first tell a person registers to vote, and then the person will ask you, why should I give you my ID? Why should I trust you and all of that? It should be automatic so that we can deal with the issue of, okay, which political party you need to vote for because you've already registered automatically. So
Cool.
I just wanted to understand that.
Thank you very much. Sizoba ne vote of thanks from Ubab Ndambezitha, Dorotel, who will be giving a vote of thanks, but perhaps getting ukela phezulu lapho, it's a matter of choice that's enshrined in our constitution, and perhaps it does require a change of legislation and perhaps to some extent some tinkering with the constitution. It's possible. We just need to do the right thing with the legislation. You're welcome. You're welcome.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Simo Zigalala. I'm a director of Bambata Turnkey Projects. We work with a couple of NPOs throughout KZN, and hence my interest in this congregation. We're looking here for an answer in terms of digital voting to be inclusive of the youth. There's been a lot of suggestions that have came through. However, there's just a couple of things that we're missing. Just to be blunt, IEC was introduced to us youth in the 94 elections, and we knew about it. IEC has not been introduced to the recent youth.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, there needs to be a change in terms of how the voting is controlled by the IEC. The IEC has lost the control of the voting. There are things that the IEC seems to, it looks like the politicians are actually directing them in what to do. Therefore, the youth of today who are very inquisitive, they question the value of the IEC. So it's time that the IEC also sits down with the politicians and actually derives a part where there are certain things that the politicians cannot do, like discrediting the IEC's results, like pointing out various wrong things that are rumors that discredit the IEC. So the credit of the IEC is very important, so that the youth of today can actually credit the IEC. And also the youth of today can also know what the IEC does. And then the other suggestion was from another youth person that was outside I was talking to, and they said, if the IEC could get politicians to actually give out a list of actual representatives of the youth that are going to be in parliament after the elections, then the youth would have something to vote for and say, I know SPA is going to represent me in parliament. Because right now we're voting as youth, and at the end of the day, we are speaking to grandpa who's been there since I was born.
Yeah.
And we don't see the youth that we've always been speaking to in our wards or in our schools or in our SRC committees and so on. So it is just a suggestion that is coming from the youth, that if the political parties could expose the youth that they are going to definitely put in parliament, then the youth will be interested to say, I'm going to be represented by so-and-so in parliament.
I think that connects to what about the electoral reform discussion about constituencies, etc. Can I just get a quick one? You said IEC was introduced to you as a young person in 1994. What does the introduction of the IEC in 2025 look like, or 2026 look like?
I haven't seen it.
You mean visibility? They must be more...
They're not visible.
Okay.
They're not visible at all. In 94, when we were in high school, they were very visible. Right now, they're not visible.
Okay.
When I communicated with the NPOs that we work with in the rural areas and asked them, what do the youth know about the IEC? I'm going to something like this. And they said they don't even speak of it.
Okay.
They don't know what it is.
Let's see that bluntly so that we know exactly what to drive more action around. A final one from yourself.
Sanibona.
Unjani?
Sikhona, thanks.
Siphilile nathi.
Uthula Masondo from Toda Youth Life Empowerment. I'll quickly, some of the points that I have prepared here, they've touched on, but I just wanted to emphasize. One of part of my programs that we run as TODA is we assist students, the matric students, to.
This one is the mic, this one just closer to your, yeah.
Okay, we assist students to register with CAO.
Okay.
For tertiary education. We also do to assist students with tertiary students with our internship. So while we are doing that, we also emphasize on the youth getting involved with voting.
Yeah.
Like as DDP, as part of OTDP. So like every time is when it is an elective election season, like we have those sessions where we like we kind of like do like a pre-election kind of like education ourselves. So what I've noted recently is that the importance of integration, as someone has said, the integration of intergovernmental departments such as Home Affairs.
Yeah.
Like for the past 4 months, if I'm not mistaken, the youth or everyone else is having problem with getting a booking for EID. And we assume and accept it, and there are no dates. Because whatever dates people have been trying to secure since August, it's always said. And then I took an initiative and went to Home Affairs to see if, is it actually, are there no dates? Or there is something that is happening. Because honestly, these are matric students that I'm working with.
Yeah, and they were struggling to access the Home Affairs system.
Yeah.
Perhaps to drive to a close?
What I realize is that actually dates are being sold. That is why the patrons are having a problem with accessing booking dates. The dates are there.
So what happens, if I can explain, so what happens is there's one agent, for instance, probably someone who has a relationship with someone inside the Home Affairs. They go and mass book dates, and then they sell them off based on those times. Yes. So they've taken what was happening at the queues, where you could pay for a seat at a Home Affairs to go in front of everyone, and they're replicating with the online system.
So moving from that,
yes.
If IEC can, having exposed or having said that, if IEC can look into that, and also the issuing of IDs, it shouldn't just be when it's an election season. Say, for instance, if the elections will take place in May. Home Affairs should not be 24 hours or 12 hours only. That's is elections time. Also, IEC should not be visible only when we are due to go for elections. And with regards to social media and stuff, the pop-up, we need like something that is attractive to the youth, something that will be followed. Like abantu, they follow a podcast and all that, they trend.
Yeah.
You know. So if IEC
What
devise-
content about the
Yes.
No, I'm asking you now. What content about the IEC would make the IEC trend?
like njengoba ngishilo ukuthi na IEC ingakhulumi ngokuvota.
Kumele ikhulume ngani i-IEC
Ngokuregister.
specifically yona
Angithi-
in order to trend. What must they talk about in order to trend?
Yeah, ikhulume ngako ukuvota, ukubaleka kokuvota.
Kanjan. How do they speak about ukuvota for trending? I'm sorry. I need to get.
No,
Yeah.
it's fine. I understand. Like, bakhulume ngokuthi na kubaleke ngani ukuvota.
Yeah.
Yabona, from taking us from 1994. What has impumela yokuvota ekwenzile since 1994? But it
Yeah.
has to be trendy, and it has to be attractive to youth.
Okay, ngiyabonga kakhulu. Yeah, let's take judge finally, and of course, I'm going to offer after the judge our panelists just 2 minutes each to round up or wrap up their thoughts, and then we'll move to Ubab Zulu, Dr. Zulu, to give the vote of thanks.
I just want to give you some information, which you may not be aware of, that the IEC meets regularly, but more frequently when there's an election in the offing, with the interministerial committee, which has the police, which also has the Home Affairs people, and we are taking all these messages that you've given us to those committee meetings, and thank you very much for the inputs you've made. Can I suggest that you use our platforms to give us tips for the CEO and tips for whoever in the IEC. You know, we used to have tips for Trevor before with the tax thing. So give us some tips, and we will take it up from there. I mean, every day this is a world that's changing. But I also want to say that we must be a hell of a careful when we speak with our knowledge and we guess. That is a rhetoric that lays the seeds for authoritarianism and destruction of institutions. So if the IEC has not reached out to you since 1994, you can't know what it's doing with the political organizations now. So don't talk about the IEC being influenced by political organizations to the extent that it's been compromised. But yes, if you do have the evidence, we have a whistleblower portal, which is run independently. Anybody wants to complain about IEC or any of its officials not abiding by the law, you are free to do that. But don't start a narrative that you don't have the evidence for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Judge. Round of applause for Judge Play, and a round of applause for yourselves. I have something for us to do quickly, please. Can you raise your phones for me? Pakamisana phone. We unlock. You go to your SMSs. You create an SMS. SMS, not WhatsApp, not anything else. You create the SMS. Type your ID number as the message. Your ID number, new SMS, ID number as the message. And you're sending it to 32810. I promise you it's safe. Your ID number as a new message, 32810, and you send. Send. Who's gotten a response back in the next 2 minutes? Not longer than a minute to 2 minutes. So I'll ask Tabile to start responding after she's done responding, I'm going to come back and ask you if you've gotten any responses via text. Tabile? No. Cela kube Mr. Josiah, actually, to start. You'll end off for us.
Plain tricks on, okay, here we go. Yep, mine really is this question. If I'm to vote, what is it in it for me? I found that thought-provoking, and as I go back to my trade in government communications, this is the question I think I will share with colleagues, because it does come with a deeper meaning, and we need to understand that so that we get young people to participate, because the danger we are facing now is that if you look at the stats, the population is definitely made up of young people. And if we don't participate now, unfortunately, I don't know, but with IEC, I don't know if there's a quorum that says if only 10% of the population have voted, then we are nullified. It means those 10% will still take decisions on our behalf, but I think it goes to what is it for me. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So there were about 23,000 voting stations that we had last year for the election. If one person turned up for that in each of those voting stations, it means only 23,000 people would have voted. Those people, whatever their votes come to, that would form the government of a country of over 6 million people. And so that's something you need to be concerned, you need to concern yourself with. Thank you very much for your participation and engagement, Nomzan.
From my end, probably I think everyone has touched base on the importance of getting IEC to be more attention-driven when it comes to creating either their social media platforms or their interaction to be more youthful, and also just to put emphasis on just allowing the leverage of numbers when it comes to civic society, political parties, and just ensuring that there is probably a visible board that people can, it can have a barcode, or can be anything that could stay in the councillor's office or anywhere, just to push them to engage more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gumbi, for your contributions as well. On the subject of IEC's visibility in these spaces that we have, I think the other part is the corporatization of your communication mechanism. So for Instagram, for instance, it looks like what you might see on a Standard Bank space or another corporate identity. I think there's room to change your messaging to make it look a bit more grassroots. There's a way, and you might look at organizations and civic institutions, for instance, that have done a bit more work around that. It needs to be good, structured, but not look as corporate. You know what I mean? Like a bit more organic in terms of the content itself, I think from that perspective. Has anyone gotten a response back to the SMS? Raise your hand, please, if you've gotten a response back to your SMS. No, airtime. Does it require airtime? 1 rand 10 cent, guys. Benge now. 1 rand 10 cent is a lot. Oh, I'm speaking from privilege. So who has gotten a response back from the 32810 SMS? Yes, Mr. Bola. What was the response to the SMS? It gives you your voting station. So as we were talking about multi-platforms that we can use, one of the things that you spoke about was the USSD, and I think there might be a USSD, SMS icon. So if you've sent your SMS, you now can see where you are. Are we doing data? But you do need like 2 rand at least available. Or they don't use free text, so I'm going to take SMS bundles and think you're going to get the ability to text. And of course, you can find out where you're registered to vote. And if where you're showing, according to the SMS, is not where you're going to be come next year's election, then go and re-register so that you can be up to date as well. As well, of course, I want to also echo our gratitude and thanks to Prof. Singh for her contributions and provocations earlier, and we continue to wish her well.
All right, so
Cela ukuhluka nje, mhlambe I'm going to be a bit of a Debbie Downer. I do agree, Uguti, there needs to be a deeper inclusion of universities in spaces like this because they are a microcosm of communities. However, when you mention that, the IEC needs to learn from higher learning institutions, it's kind of problematic for me because we still are seeing a low youth voter turnout even in the SRC elections themselves. And that's quite problematic. So this quite shows that there's a deeper systematic issue to low youth voter turnout that goes beyond just the IEC itself or even in academic institutions. And then for me, the answer would then be is that we need to go back and, that robust political education that I was talking about, we need to go back to that and make it relevant to the young people or to the young person. And actually even the idea itself that, like Mohali said, I don't see why I need to vote. It's also a bit tricky for me because apart from the democratic dispensation that we don't have in any other form or means to participate. So if we do not participate in the electoral processes, how do we expect to see change? So I think we need to go back and reevaluate and look at the current status quo of the country when we look at, the high unemployment rates. That in itself should be a trigger or an encouragement for us to go out there and vote. We spoke about electoral reforms. I think it was last year, if not the year before, there was this thing of electoral reform. There were conversations about electoral reform, and all of us had to make submissions on how do we want to vote for either our president or how we want our electoral processes to be structured. And it had to be postponed, I think about twice, if not thrice, because people were not participating. The avenues are there.
So they extended the deadline, not necessarily postponed.
So the deadline was extended. So the avenues are there, but the problem is that, and why I mentioned that we need to go back to that political education, is the fact that once you have that understanding or you know what your vote can result to, or even the mechanisms that you can use in between election seasons to participate, then even this conversation that we're having about digitization won't be a need. Because I think Mohali mentioned about, standing in the line for 350. It's because you can see the end goal. So even if we don't have necessarily e-voting right now, but you would want to wake up early in the morning to go and vote because you can see or know how your vote is going to equate to real change. That's it.
Thank you very much. Ultimately, thank you for your contributions. Thank you for the IEC KZN for hosting us. Thank you for all of the speakers for your participation. And thank you to you as the people who will be the people who ought to be carrying the message back. I like that both yourself, Mnomzane, and our SRC at the back spoke about your constituencies. And so we hope that when you come into spaces of this nature, you recognize your own privilege in that you might have been elected to occupy the position that you do, or you might just be someone with an affinity for seeking knowledge. The fact that you seek knowledge means you also have to deposit that knowledge somewhere. And so we hope that you are a meaningful repository that can be able to offload and share with others who don't have the capacity and haven't been in the room. And of course, that we don't just think about it purely as a rural and urban divide, but it is legitimately an access problem, access to information, because ultimately, Njobasila, Sisetegwini, and if we go probably not even 10 kilometers to a Cato Manor, are they having such discussions? Yeah, all of that is important. My social media handle is @Ngadlala. Thank you very much. And of course, let me invite Dr. Kulegane Zulu to officially close us off for today. Thank you.
And German Program Director, thank you very much for the opportunity. Commissioner Judge Pillay, the PO of KZN, Mr. Masinga, the POs from other provinces, our colleagues from the National Office Communications Unit, we acknowledge your presence. I know that when the PO acknowledge who is here, you were missed by mistake. We formally acknowledge you. ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of KZN Office for the Commission, we would like to extend our sincere appreciation for your attendance of this KZN 2025 Thought Leadership Seminar, and it has been a success. First and foremost, our deepest thanks to our guest speakers, Dr. Rapo, who has just stepped out. He's always been with us when we have these kind of seminars. Dr. Singh from UKZN, and we also like to thank our panelists, Ms. Tabile Luthuli, Mr. Gumbi, and Mr. Pila, for sharing your time, your wisdom, and your valuable insight on the digital technology to promote youth participation in enhancing democracy. Your contribution in this seminar has enriched us. It has also inspired us and given us much to reflect on as the Commission. We would also like to thank our staff members who made this possible. Maybe at this time I would like to introduce Ms. Iris Dlamini, who is our new Provincial Head of Outreach and Stakeholder Engagement. Ms. Dlamini, if you can stand up. Let's give her a round of applause. We thank you very much. Together with your team, you have worked tirelessly behind the scene to ensure that everything runs smoothly for this seminar. Your dedication and hard work are truly appreciated. To our participants and attendees, thank you for your presence, your engagement, and your continuous support. An event of this nature is only meaningful because of people like you. And lastly, to our program director, Njoman Kamkape. Thank you very much for your sterling job that you have done. And to everyone who participated and contributed in a big or small ways, your efforts have not gone unnoticed. Thank you very much to all, and may we continue to work together with the same spirit of unity and purpose. Safe travels, and have a blessed day. Thank you very much.
Sebonga kakhulu, Dr. Zulu. Just a final parting shot from my side.